Welcome to the Voice of South Pacific broadcast, a live broadcast from Seattle, Washington at the Manamo'i Center. Malo lau malia ho eki pe malele tong kotoa tau te whilonga ki e wahao pe, ngalo pe, o tau tu uta mo i mai ai ke ahatol noa o Sanuari o i wanoa wanima. Toi pe ai ahoe taha pe tau wha o singa ai mahina ulaki o i tau fo o koini. Tau whawhita i whako i ngā koe lava ke mao hawhainga maarie, ke tau pe pota noa aki ai whikau aki pa moe mass deportation, pe koe whikau aki koe moe ngai tutuni koe ia ko osi whakapasi i kabineti Amerikani, koe ngā koe ngai lao koe ia ke whakafoki, pe koe no tipoti aki nau tolu koe ki tuapure anga. Ka te o atu pe ai ki i hiva koe ni, ki i sekoni pe mahalo tau noa, pe oska tau kamata rewa, wha malo lahi a tēni ka ki mō tolu, pia mō wahe atu e tau program koe ni, a mana whake tau kau, pa mō tahe kau top lawyer i he immigration ni, Amerikani, ki tau kau whataha moia, wha malo lahi whake ni ka tau tā Pakieli Kaufusi, ne whalele whaki ai ta whakoi ki mō i Lelei, ka ihe aho ni, tene tokone lahi whaki, ki ona wha ala ai ngahi mea ko ia o tuku mai e pure anga, ko i ngā ke ma uto tonu, e tonga kotoa e ngai whainoina koe ni. Please share to everybody, even the non-Tongan speaking. You can share it, because when the lawyer is coming in, he's also like speak English, then you are welcome to ask him any question, The most important thing that we all get the fact, and the truth, and then the things that advising us, to abide with as we are an immigrant to this country. Te o atu pe a ki hiwa koe ni ke e tau whanonga. Ki skon pe tau noa o sko au tau whokilewa. Malo lelei toke tā Pakieli Kaufusi pe a moe tau mai tau taimi. Hange koe ia koe ki i hiwa whakaloto lahi koe ni o e aho ni. Koe ni pe tau mata i koloa, koe lotu pe moi whalafola. Kai ngā lotu oua pe te tau tue noa, ko sisu pe koe taki o e tau whanonga. Koe ia toke tā Pakieli, Ki mua koe ni ke tau toki hokot ke whakaholoholo koe ia o e tau polokalama. Te o angai whenga maari koe ni toke tā Pakieli. Oh, by the way, welcome Richard Hammond, that's one of the top lawyers in the country. Thank you so much for joining us. But I'd like to give this opportunity in our native language to ask Dr. Pakieli to please, share that information that you wanted to relate it to our people abroad. Kata pe Dr. Pakieli toko mai ai whanongonongo koe nā, o whekau aki ko ia mo ngai tala noa ko ia whekau aki mo ice. Ice, a lot of people talk about what is the ICE. ICE is the immigration, oh, I forgot. Enforcement. Forgot the middle part. I'll let the lawyer will finish it up. But anyway, Toita Pakieli, you can go ahead and introduce yourself and then talk about, what we're facing and what other information that the people need to know about in our native language. Thank you. You can go both, Tongan and English.
Malo bito Fatima ko i go whenga mari e whakafo ko ne tau kaunga kawa mo si ka inga tonga I he ahoni whiwhia bito I he whawhe ko ia ke uki I kaua tu ki he programa ki he tunga mahuinga ko ne whaia e whakatanoa ki he ngahi mea ko ia hoko I he hu mai ko ne drum President for all pe ko whiwhia rewa ke whaia tokoni ka ko tui I he ko I foki ko heni a loya pe mo mahu inga no taimi ko kore ben ka Fatima ko no inga ke ulak whaia whakatanoa pe mo loya pe osko ia pa toki o atu rewa ai ngahi tokoni ai ngahi me au ton ke whai kia whakamafa ke te tau tolu ko ia tonga ka tau whito ki he tonga ko ia nofo I kai ke maku ngofua whakalao ke nofo I he pure anga ko ni Amerika. Richard, hey man.
Hello.
Welcome
Hello.
to the,
Good afternoon.
yeah, good afternoon. Welcome to the program today. It is really exciting that you spare your time to be with us today. I was supposed to be talking to my people in our native language, but I respect your being here today. So I know that your time is really precious to the Tongan community. And I think I will continue with you, and then I will shift to later on to my language, and then speak to my people directly. But I think it's also important that you clear some of the things that we feel, because a lot of things with this executive order, it's pretty much. It is really challenging for us to try and interpret it based on so many newses that we are hearing. And when you are here today, I think it will be, it is a blessing for us, Tongan community. Also, as you may be aware, I know that it's very natural to the Tongan people, especially those that are undocumented here in the United States, to have a mixed feeling of concern and anxious uncertainty, and to some extent frustration in response to Donald Trump executive actions on immigration specifically. And having you here today, I think it is really an honor to talk to you. I have outlined some of the questions.
Yes.
And I put the questions in an order that will be really so that the information won't be mixing too much.
Okay.
And then I will go over some of the questions that are really critical and very appropriate to our Tongan community. But I will give you this opportunity to introduce yourself. I think it is important for the Tongan people to know a little bit about yourself. As you may be aware, I am working for the university. I'm a professor at the university, and I'm really, my field is in medical research. But I also, there are things that I help interpret it to the Tongan community. Like, for example, in this particular case, I was just invited to give my thoughts and interpretation in my language based on the Donald Trump's executive order on immigration. So, but before I give you the questions, let me hand on this opportunity to you to introduce yourself. And maybe Fatima will continue ask some questions, and then before I actually give you some of the questions that I feel that is appropriate and relevant to the Tongan community. Thank you, Richard.
Well, thank you, Doctor. It's a real pleasure and honor to be with everybody today. It was a blessing to connect with Miss Aho and to provide an opportunity to share information. I'm an immigration lawyer. I'm based in Ohio. My practice is national, and I've been practicing immigration law for 30 years. So that's what I do full time. Um, I have a sister out in the Seattle area, and she's a school teacher, and she teaches primarily in an immigrant school district. And she texted me the other night and said, some of the parents are not going to work, some of the kids are not coming to school because of fear of ICE. And Ms. Aho had mentioned ICE. ICE stands for Immigration Customs Enforcement. It's the police arm of the immigration section of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. I started my career in Moscow as an immigration lawyer in the U.S. and helping folks come to the U.S. And then I set up my practice in Cleveland. I do all kinds of immigration law. I do deportation defense. I represent NFL football teams, companies, universities, families. I do deportation defense. I've seen just about everything. Um, I wrote a book about immigrants with a journalist, and the book was called Immigrant Incorporated. And the reason we wrote that book was to try to, because so many Americans, when they hear the word immigrant, they have a negative connotation. Um, and both my co-author and I were married to undocumented. Our wives were undocumented immigrants at one point. My co-author Bob, who was a journalist for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, his wife was from South Korea, and she became a PhD first violinist in the Cleveland Orchestra. And my wife is from Taiwan, and she was also undocumented in the 1980s, and she became a physician. By the way, over 25% of the physicians in the U.S. are foreign born. Doctor, I think you know that probably over 40% of the medical researchers in the U.S. are foreign born. And this is part of the message that we wanted to convey to the American people is that the immigrant contributions to this country are enormous. Whether it's the PhDs or the hard worker in the fields, if you take the immigrant out of the equation, America collapses, literally. I think there's about 40 million foreign-born individuals in the United States. And I always point to like the entrepreneurship piece because America, some of the negatives that people say about immigrants, oh, they're taking our jobs. Well, they're creating jobs. Immigrants are twice as likely than American born to start a business. And that's true whether it's a small bodega or it's a Silicon Valley technology company. Half the companies in Silicon Valley have immigrant founders. Immigrants are twice as likely to start a business than American born like me. Immigrants are twice as likely to have a patent compared to someone like me, born in the US. And it's no surprise that 46% of the Fortune 500 companies today are started by an immigrant or a child of an immigrant. I mean, how many jobs is that? American jobs are there in that equation? So I don't know. I look at it from the Rust Belt perspective. We would love to have more immigrants come to our area. My city of Cleveland used to have 1 million people. Now we're down to 360,000 people. My city used to be the seventh largest city in America. Now we're like the 32nd largest city in America. You know, so there's room for us, and I think the data supports that. We should be welcoming immigrants, not pushing them away. Now, obviously,
Thank you, Richard, actually for highlighting the importance and the amount of contribution the immigrants are contributing to America. And I hope that you'll get to a higher level, your explanation today. And like you say, that data supported. But I see signal from Fatima. I think Fatima would like to ask a question. So if not, I will
Sure.
continue. Yeah, giving you a questions. And I also kindly ask you, Richard, because of the time that
Yeah,
you are having with us is so precious for us. So you can briefly touch some of the questions that I will ask you.
okay,
So I can ask as many questions as I can to cover various areas,
sure,
especially with regards to immigration. That would be great. And the rest of
sure,
the actually maybe I can explain it later on. And if I have a question, I will ask Fatima for your contact information if you don't mind, and then we can
sure,
Yes,
communicate
we have it.
and
We'll
elaborate
forward
more.
everything to you. Yeah.
sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I think
yes,
the main thing,
Fatima.
like that everybody wanted, like we wanted to get the fact, the truth,
Okay.
the
Wonderful.
actual information that the people wanted to hear, not like I just wanted to share something. So one of
So
the things that I think that was already shared, but I do wanted to ask the lawyer because of your experience, your expertise, out of 30 years. So on this one here that was approved by the cabinet, like for national law, the mass deportation, is it targeted, to all the illegal immigrants or only for the people that were crossed over the border? So I want you to please to clarify that part because I hear some of our people, uh, comprehend, some mixed information, and I'll leave it up to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm getting a lot of calls right now in the office. People are scared. I've never seen this much anxiety, fear, and panic in the immigrant community. But I do try to help people kind of recalibrate this because it is confusing when you look at the media and the news stories. I think there is a spectrum of cases where you're at a higher risk of encountering ICE, right? So on the far end of the spectrum where that risk is high, it's going to be people who have final deportation orders, right? Where a judge has ordered them deported, the appeals have been exhausted, and they haven't left the US.
Right.
And there's probably 600,000 or so people that fit that paradigm. Those people should probably be worried. Additionally, people that have criminal convictions, and so that may include people with green cards. Certain criminal convictions will make you deportable even though you have a green card. So those folks, I think, have a higher risk of an ICE encounter. But for the rest of us that are just simply undocumented because they came over the border, without authorization, or they came with a visa and overstayed. 40% of the undocumented came with visas and overstayed. They're from Canada. They're from Ireland. It's not all from the southern border. Those folks, I think, have a much lower risk of an adverse encounter with ICE. But if ICE does come across them, yes, I think they will put them in deportation. And I'll be happy to answer more questions regarding that. But I think we got to think about the risk level, and not everybody has the same risk level.
Thank you very much, Richard Hammond. You answered the question and you clarified it, So I'll go back to you, Dr. Pakieli. We can go both, like in Tongan and in English,
Thank
and
you.
sometimes
Thank
maybe you
you.
pick up the Tongan part better.
Yeah. Thank you, Fatima. Like I said before, we can reserve the Tongan part so that when Richard finish with us, then I can continue on the Tongan part
Okay.
because of his time. But I would like to continue on just to follow up the question Fatima gave you, Richard. There's also on this order that it says that you only for those that are 2 years or less. Yeah. So you have to really have a proof of documents that you have been in the United States more than 2 years. Can you kindly clarify on that, please?
Sure. This has been part of the law for many years, but has not been enforced. But the law basically says that it hasn't been enforced in the interior of the U.S. It's been enforced at the border. But but the law basically says if you cannot prove, if you're out of status and you cannot prove that you've been here more than 2 years, then ICE can go ahead and expeditiously remove you. It's called expedited removal without access to the courts. So they do this all the time at the border. If they encounter somebody at the border and they want to just issue a removal order, they can. But now they're saying, hey, we can do that within the U.S. If they catch somebody in L.A. or Ohio or whatever. So I am encouraging people to carry with them a folder, and the folder should have evidence of their stay in the U.S. It should have their children's birth certificates. It should have their lease agreement or their deed to their house. If they're filing taxes, even with an ITIN number, they can document that, because we don't want ICE to make a mistake and say, hey, we don't know, if you've been here 18 months or 18 years, we're deporting you. Right?
Oh, wonderful, Richard. This is really helpful. Just to follow up again, Richard, like just to give an advice, what step can the Tongan people take to protect themselves and their families if they are approached, by the immigration enforcement officers? So far, we are talking about like if you are encounter with them, but what if they are actually approached by the immigration enforcement officers?
Well, I think
What
it's
kind of
important. Absolutely, Dr. Pakieli. It's important to emphasize that the U.S. Constitution applies to everybody, regardless of their status. So we have constitutional rights. We have the right to remain silent. We have the right to have a lawyer. Um, in terms of our house, let's say we're at our home and ICE comes knocking. Okay, this is a very common question that I get. Or at a church. I'm actually going to speak at a church on Sunday, and the pastor and I talked a lot about security at the church and when they have to, should they lock the door? Do they have to let ICE in if ICE comes knocking? And this is what I told the pastor: whether they come to the church or to the house, you don't have to open the door. Okay. If you open the door, that ICE could interpret that as an invitation to come in, like you've consented to them to come in. What I suggest is if they knock on the door, you ask ICE through the door or through the window, show me a warrant. Slip the warrant under the door. And I think, and Ms. Fatima and I were exchanging emails today, and I shared the red card, which has been translated into multiple languages. And those red cards we can distribute to everybody on Facebook or by email. But the red card basically helps the individual, because they're going to be stressed out, right? It reminds them what are their constitutional rights under the Fourth Amendment and under the Fifth Amendment. And it tells them what they should say to the officer. But this is one thing I want to share with everybody. ICE uses tricks. One of the tricks they use to get inside homes and houses of worship or whatever is they write their own warrants and they sign their own warrants. You do not have to open the door if the warrant is signed by an ICE agent. You have to open the door if it's signed by a judge. Okay? So that's very, very important. Secondly, if you are talking to ICE, do not sign anything until you talk to a lawyer, because ICE sometimes will play tricks, as I said, and trick someone into signing their own deportation order. So those are the two things. And like I said, I think the most important thing is to keep calm. And even before ICE comes, I think you should sit down with a lawyer in your city or somewhere else and just say, hey, tell me what my rights are. Tell me, when I tell you my immigration story, tell me that, I have if immigration does come and puts me in deportation, I can pursue something like there's asylum or cancellation of removal or the U visa, or, there's different programs that we have access to.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, for that. It's very helpful, especially in that context. I also would like to follow up on this executive order. Is one of the things actually stated that is the registration requirements. Can you explain the new registration and fingerprinting requirements for all non-citizens? And follow up with that, what are the consequences for those who are unable to comply with that requirements?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, Dr. Pakieli, I've not reviewed that particular executive order. I'm not sure that it's been implemented yet. Um, I mean, basically, if you are an immigrant and on a legal status like a green card or a work visa, you are supposed to register your address with U.S. immigration at all times. In terms of the undocumented, I don't know of too many undocumented folks that are registering or will register with immigration. So I haven't really reviewed that executive order yet. But if implemented, I guess it calls into memory. It recalls, I remember after 9/11, we had a program called End Sears, which required immigrants from Muslim countries to register with the immigration authorities. So I'll have to look at that and review it and get back to you. But
That's fine.
yeah,
Yeah. Also, like Fatima said from the beginning, there are some of the Tongans that are undocumented, but they entered the United States yeah, using visas. Some of them are actually came in through student visas, visiting
yes,
visas, and all those stuff. And then end up, like overstaying here.
Yes.
But again, they have been here more than 2 years, like you say earlier on. Do you think that these people should be concerned? Like you say, that it's always important that they carry all these necessary documents with them,
right.
even if they are driving around, or even if they're walking around in a shopping center or anywhere they work, or at the job site. They have to have these documents with them so that they, if they ever encounter the ICE people, they have something to prove that they were here. But anyway, should they worry at this
Well,
point?
everybody that doesn't have status should be concerned and should be investigating whether there is a way to legalize their status. Now, you mentioned people that overstayed a visa. They came here legally and overstayed. For them, there is a pathway to get a green card. For example, if they're sponsored by a U.S. citizen spouse, they can legalize and apply for a green card, whether they've been here, 1 week overstay or 20 years overstay. As a matter of fact, I just did a marriage green card for somebody who overstayed 20 something years and they married an American. Now it's got to be a real relationship and a bona fide relationship, obviously, but that would be one way. But also, if they have a child who's over 21 who's an American, then they could sponsor their parent who overstayed. But but other than that, there aren't that many ways to legalize those folks. They can't legalize through employment while they're here in the U.S. So if they're not getting married and they don't have an adult child that's American, then their options are going to be limited.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you. And I think I should pass to Fatima.
Thank
If
you.
you have any question, if not, I can continue. But Fatima?
I have a question. I'm passing it out to my co-host, Latu Huakau.
My question is that there are some of our people who have application being put into the system. If they are asked, if you could give us an idea, meaning if their spouse have applied for their stay, but also children over the age of 21 who have already applied. However, COVID has led to the process of being delayed. Is there a way for these people? What can we suggest, please?
I mean, unfortunately, the green card program, even under Biden, was extremely slow. And you're right, COVID
Right.
created a lot of delay, particularly for cases that are outside the US. If the individual, the beneficiary is outside the US, it could take a couple of years on average to sponsor a spouse or a parent outside the US. Um, last I checked, there were like 300 or 400,000 cases that were documentarily qualified for embassy interviews, but they couldn't get the interview scheduled quickly. It also depends on which embassy we're dealing with. Some embassies are very backed up and some aren't. For those in the US that are being sponsored by a spouse or an adult child, on average, it takes between one year to 18 months to process those green cards. My concern under the Trump 2.0 is he's going to follow the game plan of Trump 1.0, which is to do everything behind the scenes to destabilize even legal immigration.
Oh, wow.
What I mean by that is, take away the resources from USCIS, from the State Department, stop hiring. He already froze the hiring for new federal employees. And that means, and he's also trying to push out existing federal employees and encourage them to early resign. So what that's going to do is it's going to erode the resources in these agencies. So the delays that we've already had are going to get worse, in my opinion.
Right.
Okay, just to follow up, thank you, Latu, for asking excellent questions. So just to follow up on Latu's questions regarding these people, do you think, Richard, that it's important for them to have a documents to present it to the ICE if they ever encounter these people, that they are waiting on the waiting list for the processing, so that they may be helpful with their determination on whether to lock them up or let them go?
Absolutely. I think that goes, Doctor, into the file that they're carrying with them, right? It's any receipts that immigration has issued showing the cases are pending, good moral character references, the birth certificates of their children, and these kind of things. I think it's really helpful to have that because we don't assume that ICE knows anything about you. That ICE is going to get accurate information in their database, right? So I think it's very helpful to have that information at your fingertips in case there's a problem. Also, make sure you have phone numbers of people that you can call, your family members, a lawyer that maybe you trust. Have phone numbers available in case you do get detained.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. Also, what advice could you give to the people, especially at this point? Like I say, that everything in their lives is very unstable. Like when they're driving around, do you think that they should stop driving around, and especially the undocumented? Or what kind of
I'm
advice would you give them? Like, is they are really in a stage now that is really concerning, also especially for us, that really helping them a lot in the
right.
community related issue. What kind of advice could you give them for these people?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think it's really hard just to stop living, and functioning, right? I mean, you gotta work, you gotta support your family. So I would first encourage people because I think there's a lot of anxiety. There's even anxiety in my staff, because we're getting these phone calls and people are crying. And, I said, listen, we got to take a deep breath. We got to exercise self-care. And it's like when you're on the airplane and the stewardess says, hey, when the oxygen mask falls, put it on yourself first and then put it on your child second. So we got to take care of ourselves so we can take care of others. And the first thing that I would tell other people is there's power in knowledge. So they should figure out with their lawyer, their trusted advisor, is if I do get in trouble with ICE, do I have a way to stay? Because if the answer is yes, then I'm not so scared about ICE. I'll give you an example. A lot of the undocumented community are eligible for a program that's only available in immigration court.
Wow.
In other words, they can't go to immigration office downtown and apply. They got to be in immigration court and apply. It's called cancellation of removal. It's in the law, and it allows anyone that's been here at least 10 years, who's got a U.S. family member or permanent resident, spouse or child or parent, and who's a person of good moral character, they can apply for a green card in front of a judge.
I've heard of that.
So, and not only that, while the case is pending, we can get a work permit.
Yeah.
And, we have again, under the law, we have rights. So I think when I talk to churches, especially, and I talk into communities, I say, listen, I'm not saying that you're waving your hand at the ICE agent saying, put me in deportation. Okay, we're not doing that. But if they get me and they put me in, I'm not angry. I'm not scared. I know I can apply for a program, and I could fight for that green card. And by the way, it's taking years to get trial dates. Years. I mean, some of these cases will go on 5-10 years. I guarantee you. Right there, so nothing is going to happen overnight. But the good news is there's relief. So that's one program. There are others. There are other programs. If I'm the victim of a crime, certain types of crime, or my child was assaulted at school, guess what? I might be able to apply for a U visa. Or my child, this is a case I had recently. My child is a Marine, but I came undocumented 20 years ago without inspection. Guess what? There's a program for that individual. It's called Parole in Place, PIP. So we do have some tools at our disposal. Asylum. Hey, I'm afraid to go back to my country.
Asylum.
I can't practice my religion. That's a defense. So I think that's an empowering message, that we are not left hopeless and helpless. We have rights under the law, and once we know that, I think we feel a little bit better.
Oh, thank you, Richard. Actually, these are really important information. We are so
Very
excited. I'm
Exactly.
happy that the Tongan people are listening to you.
I hope so.
With
Yes.
all this opportunity that is available out there, and most of us don't
info.
know.
Thank
But thank you for sharing that. But
Yes.
just to
Yes.
follow up with that questions about the work permits. Also, there is a part on this executive order that says about these work permits, and it may be pending, especially for those that are applying for green cards, but they have the work permits. What is the implication of these changes to those people that have the work permit, but they are in the process of getting their green cards? Like you say, that they are waiting on the waiting list, probably in 10 years. They will.
Right. I mean, it's as if we're filing for a status. That's called the I-485. And when we file the I-485 based on family or based on work, we can apply concurrently for a work permit. Under Biden, the work permit came within a month or 2 months. I don't know what Trump is going to do with those, but he may delay them and cause problems. So we'll have to wait and see. There's also a group of people that are here on temporary protected status, maybe 1.5 million people that are from Haiti. They're from Sudan. They're from Ethiopia, Venezuela. Before Biden left office, he extended their temporary protected status. They're here. They're allowed to stay because of political upheaval in their home country, natural disasters in their home country, whatever, and they get work permits. But just yesterday, they just issued another executive order saying they're stopping the extension of TPS for Venezuelans, and the work permits will be canceled and this sort of thing. So, I mean, we're going to see a lot of changes, but we're also going to see a lot of lawsuits. Remember, in Trump won, Trump was doing a lot of the stuff he's doing now, and the courts came and got involved. The courts stopped him from terminating TPS. They stopped him. They said, you can't do it. If you're going to do it, you got to do it. You can't do it arbitrarily and capriciously under the Administrative Procedures Act, which means you got to lay out a foundation. What is the legal justification to say, hey, we're going to take away TPS from Haitians. The court said, you got to document that it's safe for them to go back home. Well, that's not what they're saying, the administration's saying. So I think they'll lose in court. Having said that, though, I think we're still vulnerable to extensions beyond the existing TPS. I mean, Trump is not going to extend for the future, for sure. So, he's already stopped refugee resettlement programs. He stopped asylum at the border. So we're going to see more and more of that restrictionist philosophy going forward. So how that affects work permits, we'll have to wait and see.
Oh, thank you, Richard. For those listeners that I know that Richard used the word TPS a lot, but he's really standing for temporary protected status, which is the TPS he's talking about. And so I will follow up on the TPS questions. How might the revocation of the TPS or parole programs such as those for Tongans or Pacific Island communities affect individuals currently relying on those protections?
Well, I'm not aware. Are there any countries in your community that are included in TPS?
Oh, if they are not included, then it's fine.
Yeah, they're not
we don't
really.
need to cover that one because-
I can't think of any
I
specific
will
countries.
follow up on this very important part of this, the birthright, yeah?
Birthright citizenship, yes.
Yeah, what advice can you give to the Tongan communities
I-
about U.S.-born children who may lose birthright citizenship under these new rules?
Yeah, I think a lot of what Trump does, he does for show. It's
I
part of,
love how you say it.
it's part of. I mean, he's a showman. This is what he. Even when he told ICE, there was a memo that was leaked out, I think, and the message to the ICE agents is make sure your camera ready when you go into these. The ICE is on your back and for the pictures and the video cameras and all that. So a lot of this is for show, but we'll have to wait and see. But the birthright citizenship, I feel very confident. There is not one reputable legal scholar that believes that is what he's trying to do is legal or constitutional. It's in the 14th Amendment. If you're born on U.S. soil, you're a U.S. citizen, regardless of your parents and your parents' status and that kind of thing. It's not going to, withstand judicial review, but it achieves his goal. His goal is to evoke fear and panic in the immigrant community, and that's one of the things that he's going to do. But I'm not concerned about that. I mean, a federal judge has already issued an injunction on this recently and said, no, we're going to put this on hold. Because I was worried that when the executive order came out, that would mean that U.S. citizen children that fit that profile that are filing an I-130 petition for their parents, maybe they couldn't file that. Maybe USCIS would be told you can't approve that because they're not U.S. citizens really, even though they have a U.S. passport and they have a U.S. birth certificate. I was also concerned about those folks who were traveling outside the U.S. coming back in on their passport. Maybe the Border Patrol would say, I'm sorry, you're not really a U.S. citizen. I'm going to take your passport away. But the federal court said, no, we're going to put a stop to it. I mean, temporary stop. We'll figure it out at the end. But I would not lose any sleep over this.
Oh, thank you, Richard. What a relief for the Tongan community, especially in this really big topic. And I'll pass this to Fatima. I know Fatima would like to ask questions, and then I follow up after that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Pakieli. Now we're switching, from the health advice, to the immigration advice. So, Richard Herman, I know that you have all the criteria and the information, to advise us, and this is such a great blessing, great opportunity for us to learn from. It's like a big educational day for all of us as an immigrant. So knowing about Washington State, it's being known as a sanctuary state. And especially Trump keeps saying that too. It's not bad or whatever, but that's almost like related to our culture. We always come together, like we obligate, like to anybody's birthday, anybody's funeral, anything, we always come together for the celebration. So anything that coming up in the near future, do you think that we should be wise and not having those things, just to be on the safe side, or we can still go ahead and do it like last year? We had so many events, even our Tonga Day. But what would be the best advice, just to keep everybody safe?
So, first of all, I think, again, we're taking a deep breath. Let's watch the next 60 to 90 days, how this plays out. Again, looking at the first Trump administration, they petered out on their agenda. Why? Because they run out of, they hit walls. They hit walls. So there's guardrails on all of this, right? He's not a king, right? He's part of a constitutional democracy, and we've got checks and balances, right? So one of the checks will be the courts. So the courts will come in, and start checking him. They've already done that, and will continue doing that. Another check and balance is going to be money, budget. It costs money to do all this. And the first time he tried this, again, he ran out of money. There's not enough money to do all this stuff that he wants to do, So I would just take a deep breath and let's watch over the next 60 to 90 days. Let's see how it plays out. I'm hoping that the guardrails start to come up, with the courts, the financial things, and also the American people. I'm not sure that the average American person is really going to be signed up for this agenda. Okay, once the American people, average American, okay, when they're going to start seeing in the news every day, little kids crying.
Yes.
Where's my mommy and daddy?
Exactly.
Why are these kids going into foster care?
Yes.
Why are my taxes going up to go after gardeners? I want them to go after drug cartels. Once the American people start to realize this is not about going after criminals, this is about going after hardworking immigrant families of color.
Yeah.
Once the American people, I think they're going to start saying no more. This is not what we signed up for. The appetite won't be there. That will be another guardrail. In other words, Trump is overplaying his hand. Okay. And I don't think the American people are that ignorant. I mean, once they realize what's really going on, they're going to say enough's enough.
Yes.
What we need is new law to legalize the undocumented, like my wife experienced in the 1980s when Ronald Reagan was president, a Republican.
Oh, yes.
And he said, you know what? If we have to have a wall around this country, we got to have a door. And the door's got to be open for those with the heart to get here and the heart to build a good life for themselves and their family. If you're not a criminal, I want you out of the shadows. I want a fingerprint and I want to put you in the system, and I want to unleash your entrepreneurialism and your innovation and your family ethic and your work ethic. I want to unleash that so it could blossom, right? And that's what he did. And every president since then, up to George W., had a law to legalize the undocumented. And the last law that we had was called the Life Act. It was in 2001, April. And basically that law said, under George W., that law said, listen, this is a paper violation. It's a paperwork violation. Yes, we got to get you right with the law, and there's going to be a penalty. And there's requirements. The requirements are you got to have a family sponsor or an employer sponsor, and you're going to have to pay a fine. You should pay a fine. You broke the law, right? It's a civil law, by the way, not a criminal law, civil law. So there's a civil penalty, and the penalty's going to be $1,000.
Sponsorship, yeah.
And that's it. Well, then that law expired. George W., I believe, was going to fight for its renewal because he was strong with the Latino community and the immigrant community in many ways. And guess what happened? 9/11 happened. And once 9/11 happened, the war on immigrants began. And I was a young lawyer then. And if you had asked me back then, would you imagine, Richard, it'll be 23, 24 years down the road and we still don't have a Life Act when we had it in the 1980s, the 1990s, and early 2000s. I would have said, you're crazy. Of course we'll have a Life Act back. Well, here we are, no Life Act. So Congress, has basically said, we're not going to legalize the undocumented. We're just going to let it suffer. And that's where we are. Trump comes in and takes advantage of that situation. So
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. It's getting clearer now, but I also, you mentioned earlier on that it's really important at this point that we started seeking for some legal advice. And then my question is, do you know any resources that are available for undocumented individuals? I know that you're going to be, you is one of it, and hopefully you give us discount because most of us don't really afford the lawyer.
I understand.
Is there any advice on available resources that these undocumented Tongans can seek for some advice? And just to follow also,
Mhm.
or any other organization that Tongans of the Pacific Islands can contact for immigration assistance.
So a couple of things. One is, and I shared this with Fatima, is an article that I wrote. It's a immigration safety guide, and it's pretty detailed on some of the things that families should be doing to protect themselves. Like, for example, creating powers of attorney and guardianship for your children. Because if you're arrested as a parent, who's taking care of your kids? So I think some of this proactive planning is important, and that article that we can share, I think we'll talk about a lot of those steps. um, in addition to that, there's a lot of nonprofit agencies, legal aid associations, the City Bar Association, immigrant groups that are providing like pro bono or discounted assistance. And I think there'll be a lot of legal clinics set up all over the country. As a matter of fact, I'm getting calls from other lawyers asking, how can I help and volunteer? So I think there'll be a lot of people stepping up and saying, an organization stepping up and saying, we're here to help. So if there's a free legal clinic in your community, I would attend those. And the best ones are the ones where they have like one-on-ones, where you can sit down with a lawyer one-on-one, maybe for 10 minutes or 15 minutes without charging anything. And they could say, oh yeah, this is what you should do, or this is the direction you should go in, or here's some resources to take home and study. Those are the things that I would do.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a
thank you,
good
Richard.
question
Also,
here. Thank you so much. Those are very, very helpful. This is from Hala Api Api Haver. Is there any immigration legal help for the community? I think this one here is maybe directly, for our local government right here. And I think that will be the next thing that they are working on it, that have something, to educate, the undocumented immigrants and also the immigrant.
Well, yeah,
Api.
let me just interrupt you. I'm sorry, real quick. I mean, a lot of churches,
Yeah.
Yes.
like I'm doing one on Sunday in my city where the pastor called me up and said, hey, we're really scared. Can you come in and talk to the congregation? So
Okay.
I think houses of worship, nonprofit organizations like
Houses
Legal
of
Aid,
worship.
those kind of
Go,
groups
yes.
are going to be doing seminars and sessions, I'm sure, all over the country. So I'm sure you guys can distribute those lists as they become available.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Latu.
I have a question. Thank you so far, Richard Herman. Those are very vital information you have given us this far. But my question is for our young people. A lot of them have got their first degree and now are going on to their next degrees. However, I've seen in the media that Trump is now encouraging them to apply for their green card. Is that yet passed, or is that part of the,
No, it's no.
I want to know
And
where we're at with that.
we're nowhere with that. Again, it's part of
Good.
his smoke and mirrors
Okay.
showmanship.
Showmanship it is. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We haven't talked really about high skill immigration
Right.
much, but the bottom line is that part of the law is also broken. Real quickly, I have clients that work at Facebook or Google or Yahoo, and
Right.
or they have advanced degrees, and maybe from India. You know how long they have to wait for a green card through employment? Maybe 15 or 20 years.
Right.
Why is that? Because we have a nationality quota for employment-based green cards. No country can get more than 7%. So our system is so broken on
Right.
so many different levels, and Congress refuses to fix it. So yeah, I mean, I think for our young people that if they have like an F1 student visa or something, I would really think about strategies to get the green card, and there are multiple ways to do it. Sometimes you can self-petition for your own green card.
Oh,
You have national, if you can show that you have an advanced degree, that you could serve U.S. national interest. Like say you're an expert in remote engineering or robotics,
even
and you
nursing.
publish some papers, you might be
There's
able to
shortage.
self-petition for your own green card. Yeah, so there are avenues for highly skilled individuals, and they might be able to petition for their own green card, or on the alternative, having their employer file for their green card. And it's very important that they get that green card as soon as possible so that they can become independent and they're not
Yeah.
dependent on any one employer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard, for bringing this important issue, because I actually wrote a very short article for the Tongan people regarding this. I know that in December that Donald Trump was actually advertising this opportunity for whoever take a degree or get a degree here in the United States can have a right to apply for green card. And again, we have been waiting up to today. He hasn't mentioned anything about these opportunities. So thank you for clarifying that. So I know that we are coming towards the end of our program, but I would like you, if you possible, Richard, if you could uh, please put it in a very simple language, the practical steps these undocumented Tongans can take to prepare for the immigration authorities, if they ever encounter them, so that they really get it now.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Pakladi. I mean, I think in very simple steps, the first thing is take a breath and try to remain calm. Number two, create a folder to document their presence in the U.S. and their hard work ethic and their family connections to the U.S., right? And carry that with them. Number three, probably download that red card and keep that with them, and so that they're aware of their constitutional rights if ICE comes knocking. Do not open up the door if there's no warrant signed by a judge, not by an ICE officer, by a judge. Okay. And then probably the most important thing is sit down with some lawyer anywhere who does this for a living, and so you can tell your story to the lawyer. Because if they're a good lawyer, they should be able to quickly identify, hey, is there something that we might be able to apply for you? We might be able to apply for something right now. Or if immigration does put you in removal proceedings, we'll apply with the judge. So I think that is very important for people to do, to take control of their destiny. And to do that, they need to get advice.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Richard, for that. Also, I know that a lot of the Tongans here, I know they didn't cross the border, but they came here using visa to enter the United States. I know that there's that proof on the passport that shows their entry. Can you talk on that proof so that they will make sure that that proof is with them at the time when they encounter?
Yeah, they can actually just make a copy of that, that page in the passport. They can also download the I-94, which there's a website for U.S. Border Protection, cbp.gov. If you type in I-94, it'll come up on Google, and you can type in your it'll say, do you want to get your I-94? In the old days, you may remember, they would give you a white card at the border. It gave you a white I-94. Now they don't do that. They just put it online. So you can go online and type in your name and your passport number, your date of birth, and it should come up where your record of entry is going to be on their database, and you can print that up and keep that with you. Okay, so I think that's right. You're making a very good point. The record of entry is this when the clock starts ticking, right? That I came in legally and I haven't left. It even show you the departures and everything on that database. So yeah, they can download that information.
Oh, thank you, Richard.
Okay, before we finish up, like I would like to give an opportunity from a representative from the state of Utah, National Tongan American Society, Fahina Tavake Pasi. You can say something, welcome. Richard Herman is one of the super lawyer in the immigration nationwide.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity, Fatima. Thank you, Richard, for all this wonderful information. And I think hopefully it's recorded because we'll definitely share this with our community out here in Utah.
Yes, it is.
Because like you guys shared earlier, this I don't know, whatever this Hitler is doing to our USA, is he needs hopefully he gets.
You don't want to be deported.
Yeah, hopefully he gets deported. He needs to take him and his family back to Germany, where they're from. I mean, the reality is Native Americans are the people here. So,
He's
but
gonna
thank you
kick
so
us out
much,
first.
Richard, for everything.
Well,
Appreciate
it's
it.
really nice to hear from Utah. I just got barred in Utah, so I'm licensed now in Utah.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, and Utah is one of the few states that is encouraging lawyers to find different ways to deliver legal services in unique and innovative ways. So one of the ways I'm experimenting with is using different languages and different apps so that the immigrant community, regardless of their language background, can access a lawyer somewhere in the U.S. that could help them, because the language barriers are oftentimes a big deal.
Right.
So Utah is kind of leading the charge.
Oh, good. Well, we do
some-
provide Tongan and Samoan translation. So if you ever need any kind of assistance out here,
that is awesome to know. That is awesome to know. But and your comment on what might come of all of this, I do take an optimistic view. I'm an optimist by nature, my DNA, and part of it also is studying immigration history. So if you look at U.S. history, this is not uncommon in our culture. We actually have spasms of xenophobia where it gets very, very intense. So it is an American trait that even though we're an immigrant nation, we're very anti-immigrant. So, like, for example, if you look at the congressional record in 1917, 1918, you'll see Americans going in front of Congress, swearing to testify, saying, these immigrants, they're coming in and they're ruining the country. They're bringing disease. They're bringing crime. They're not learning English and not integrating. Who were they talking about? They were talking about the Italians, the Irish, the German, and the Jews, the Europeans. So that generation of immigrants became America's greatest generation in World War II. So So it's kind of in the American DNA, and I do believe that Trump is overplaying his hand for the backfire, and it's going to create another upswing in being pro-immigrant, welcoming, and legalization of the undocumented. We certainly got to do a better job at the border. Okay, I don't think Biden did us any favors with what he did at the border, but I do see blue skies ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I have one last question. I'm sorry that I
got
keep
one
your
more.
time too long. But I am very happy. By the way, I am from Hawaii. I'm speaking from Hawaii, from the beautiful island of Hawaii.
Wow.
My question, Richard, is I know that you have been gone, through these things many times, but I would like, my people, they need to be repeated many times in order to get the information. So
Right.
what is the most important piece of advice you would give to the Tongan community to help them feel more secure and informed during this time of uncertainty?
Probably the number one thing that I would do,
Yeah.
if it was me and my family, is I would find that maybe in the community, wherever they're living, in Hawaii or wherever, they trust somebody, and they would ask, who do you trust as an immigration expert?
Yes.
Okay. And I want to
Immigration
sit down
expert.
with that person. I want to
Me
sit
too.
down face to face or by video, whatever. And I'm going to tell, I want to tell them my story, because that expert should be able to tell them, you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. Your fact pattern will fit this legal program. If this happens, we'll do this. If that happens, we'll do this. I'll be with you. Here's my phone number. Call me if there's a problem. That's what we need in the community, and they should be able to find somebody that's trusted there where they're at. There's good people everywhere, and there's good lawyers and everywhere. There's bad lawyers everywhere too. And this is why I think it's good to talk to people that in the community and say, well, who do we trust? Who's not just in it for the money? Who's going to tell us the truth? Because sometimes lawyers will say, oh, give me your money and you'll be fine. And they're just taking the person's money,
Thank you for saying.
right?
Oh, thank you so much, Richard. I
Thank
have
you.
no more questions.
Just one last thing before we closed up, for the day.
Yeah.
I just had somebody was texting me asking, it's just a little simple question. They're here from Washington State. They live in very close to Yakima. And they saw, like that, a parent went to drop their kids at school. And when they
Yep.
came out, the ICE were waiting over there and they detained them. So in that case, that's so sad, we can call it, dehumanized, you separate, the human being, from the children, the parents from the children. So the question was asking, is that can be reversed, if the parents, while they're in custody and they detain them, is there any more rights for them to get out, or it's just like a one-way thing? It's done.
Well, as I kind of alluded to earlier, it's each case is unique and different. So if that person has a deportation order that's final,
Final.
okay, then
Oh, I
then
see.
our
Great.
our legal options are limited. For example,
Very
sometimes we
clear.
can file a motion to reopen, and when we file the motion to reopen, ICE is not allowed to deport that person. But they'll sit in jail while the judge decides the motion to reopen. But the grounds for filing a motion to reopen are very limited. Like, for example, if we can prove we didn't get the court notice where the judge issued the removal order, we never got that, judge. We didn't know there was a court hearing that day. Then we can file a motion to reopen. Or if our country of origin is undergoing recent turmoil, judge, I can't go home now because my life will be in danger. Then we can file a motion to reopen. So each case is unique. But if they're just overstay, there's no deportation order, and my guess is that ICE would issue a bond and let that person out, or let the judge issue a bond, and we can file a motion for a bonded release. Most people are not going to be detained while they're waiting at a court, their immigration court hearing, unless they're a criminal.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard.
so much,
I'm sorry.
Richard.
I was supposed to be asking you the last question, but Fatima actually bring this question and then really bring up something that I forgot
All right.
to ask earlier on. You know that some of the Tongans were actually we share information in social media, and according to our information, it say that some Tongans were deported because they did not pay their some of their bills, like for example parking tickets, all those kind of stuff that are overdue, and then refer to the collection agency. I didn't believe
No,
it.
no. I mean,
But
that's an
anyway,
urban.
I would like you to, a
Yeah.
lawyer, to please
Yeah.
confirm to the community
No, and
that is not true.
that's an urban myth. That's not true. They're not deporting people because they didn't pay their bills. But it does raise a point that the immigrant community can be preyed upon. Even, my wife, she's got a Chinese last name, and, she gets phone calls and emails, say people trying to rip her off, and things like that. So, no, people are not being deported because they're not paying their bills. That's not
I've got
happening.
his information that we'll put it
Thank you,
on.
Richard. Thank you. Thank you so much. It is a blessing for my Tongan community to have you here today, and I will pass it on to Fatima and Latu to finish up our program today. Personally, for myself, I thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all the great information that shares among our community, and hopefully we will continue communicating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Pakieli.
Okay,
I
the
look forward to
last-
that.
one more chance, for you, Fahina. I know that you come late, but everything is all recorded, and it's also on YouTube and also on Facebook and some other social media connection. Fahina, do you want to say something for the final?
We unmute myself. Nope, I don't have anything to say. Just again, thank you very much for this opportunity to get all this great info.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
I just want to thank you, Richard. So I already have two people who want your information. I'm asking, is that okay if we forward your
said yes.
info, and then you will have people who will call your office for further help?
Yes.
But thank you again for joining us on our program.
Well, I just want to conclude by thanking Dr. Pakieli and Fatima and Latau and our friend from Utah. It was a real pleasure talking with you. I feel a very strong energy and community support in what you're doing. So I applaud you for that, giving back to your community. Not everybody does that. So I hear the words, some immigrant communities, some immigrants they say, well, now that I'm okay and I'm safe, I'm pulling up the ladder behind me. You're not pulling up the ladder behind you. You're manning the ladder, and you're helping people get into the boat.
Put out the information
So
there.
I want to applaud you for that, and I will support any way I can what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Richard Herman. We don't have enough word to express, our gratitude. And we got all the information out there. For those of you that need, this is a super lawyer, and you can see there's about like 18 of them recommend. Just going like from New York Times, ABC News, all kinds, of recommendation. NPR, which is the National Public Radio,
Yeah.
and Forbes, and Washington Times, which is, from Washington, D.C., not Washington State. But there is a lot of them, recommend. It's called Super Lawyer.
Yep.
When we have so many known, like ethnic activities, and also big, huge news cast organization and companies, that we do know that they recommend this person here, the top and one of the best immigration lawyer in the country, that he can help us abroad. And thank you, and God bless you, for all your time, effort, and energy, to share with us, the immigrant. We come over here to find better opportunities, and we wanted to continue on. Anyway,
Absolutely.
we'll have another
Absolutely.
program with you, Richard Herman, and we'll reach out again. Top
Have a
immigration lawyer.
have a great evening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Okay. Maloi lelei tawa umain ke konga hono wa pak fa fia foka lava ke tau tala no hanga tonu he fahina pe amo hataha o kau tu o ki mo a I he loia ko ia ke faha I ko ia immigration ni tau te fito ke he ICE. Ai ko ICE foka immigration custom enforcement. Ai ko tafaaki ko na fai ko ai deportation pe ko no whakafoki ko ia o kakai ki he nau ngai whanua. Ka neongo ia ai ngai mea kono tau laki mo ia o whai peo tau lelei taha pe ko whawhiawhia whako tau mai ha kakai ki nau hanga o mai toki ai. E kai ka ki ai. E kai ka e ko ilo pe ko e sia e ki nau tolu na kusio I aina I to hu mai ngo mato a ko ko na mai tare te ai si puke pe ki nawa ave kana e as mai pe I he ngongo pe a o si e to ta ko to pe ho ha a ko e sia na fa kau ka ko e pe he pe ngai fitu lai ka te tu ko te fa ngamaria ko ni e fahina ke fa e fe ha ke a mo pe tu hanga lau ka alupe mo e ala ai ko Utah Salt Lake City okay
That's fine. Mama ko ina e lama ki tau whipota noai mo. Nā whoko e pe se te whahaono. 6% was started by immigrants. Mai, Kawaia, Silicon Valley. Te whanoa ia, ai kaungau. Sites, ai kaungau e whama, koe kau kau immigrants, Hapesi aina. Kana e ke tau tuku a te whainga Māori ke tau kesko ia me Utah.
oh fahina
Yeah.
oh iyo kona
Sorry,
wong
it
lelei mai pe
froze. Do this for me. I'm trying to get my phone. Looks like it's dying. But what were some of the questions?
iyo ko ka taka uhi ngā tu pe ke wahe ma nge tu unga ko ia mo iai I he taimi ko ni o ku hoha ai takataha ko ta pe ai kau immigrants he ko tui ku tau pot Māori pe ka e whai ang pe moha whamatala ki he o mo whetu ki Utah.
Okay. Hangi ko lau oku reach katoa ai executive order ko ni Trump ki he state ko toa pe kawat gai a Utah. Ka ko e mea mau whai whake mau ngā ue mo community he whaire e nau sitseni mo u kalasi pa whai mau polkalama retio mo things like that. Ka ko talangi ke mau kau staff ke nau tala ke kakai anga he mea kona na e wahe mai kona konga he umea na wahe mai e Richard he lawyer hange ko e kapau alo ko talangi ke tau kakai kapau hao hataha ke nau matapa kapau hataha ke nau matapa au nau short hataha hange hataha ko hai kau hao me he immigration o wea nau totor ke ua whakawe matapa they do not have to open the door okay te nau lava pe nau toruia o say no. Pau kai ke pau hange ko whanau, ka pau alu e nau whanau ki pau sai ko ngai ua pia ko ni he ni ko na o lahi ai ako ko ne mau whanau tonga. O ku kai ki e tukuangi nau toru e kau immigration ni ke na wat ki loto he. Kau nau toru e ko tokon ki he community. Ka koe hange ko lau, koe mau konga mato koe whaka koe information pe, ke informe mau kakai, kakai tonga ko ni he ki he nau toto, ke nau rights, ki he lotonga polpare ma koe ni. Pako, you know, the thing is, ko pe, mana tako lahe kau tonga na nau vote ki he Trump, mahalo ko nau kalo ulu he taimini. E poi vote ko ni.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the only part that we're doing out here in Utah is to keep our people safe, inform them about their rights.
Malo whahina.
Malo apito whahina. O whewhe nei hange koe ko mo National Tongan American Society o mo pāki ai whangaki I tohi koe ni the red card o tu whaki I he community koe ngāwe ia mahalok amanake mau hokat ki ai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mau
Yes.
pāki whangaki I
Yeah,
kāti koe
o
ni o
mau
tu whaki.
pākia, pakeke hatai, o mau email, o mau forward, I read
Good
kāti ko
idea,
ia, ki kakai ko toa pe I he mau mailing list. Pakai
Yeah.
kau kiai mo kau taki lotu, pe mo kau taki organization kehe. So
That's a
we
good
forward
idea.
that via email. Mo
Toi wāweanga ia.
Yeah.
E pe tuk pāki la tu tuk ale wiki in your
Great
kuwha,
idea. Thank you, Whahina. That's a great idea.
Malo.
The email. It's a
Yeah.
lot quicker.
Yep.
Hio. Malo o pito e whaina te aha mea ke tānaki mai ke tokoni mai. Ange koe o kai whuki ma o kai whainga ni maha ku nau pehe nau tauria. O kai ke kāwai ha toi koe uhinga peia ke kakai koe na nau kolosi koe he pō tātai whalao. Ko tau tolu whuki me me kai ngā tōnga na tau hau whuk tau tamu I bisa patuki ke he peno fo o ba. O ki te aha o tānaki ki ai wha maala ala ke whita whaako ia.
Iyo, ko tānaka pe ki ai, o kai ki tau, we have to be sure, o kai ki tau ilo tau tolu ai whainga whakaukau e siana koe ni.
Right.
Whainga whakau koe ni hit la fo o koe ni o tau motu pa. So we have to be prepared in all things. Even ko tau tolu koe hau koe ni ki hedi, sanga okay, o kun whainga moia ia ke alu kakai koe o nau nai whaere I American. So we have to be prepared hangi koe lawe loia. Make sure you have all your documents and all that kind of stuff. But don't give in ki ice. Mea ko tope, make sure ko waha mo hangi ko niu mau ngawe mo peer data ka non-profit organization ka lawyer, but they're out of California. Ka now represent ai for different states. So make sure hangi ko siya ke ha ka lawyer ko ilo te nau volunteer nau tai ni. Ka ia palpare mau hoko. You can connect them, ke tau lava connect nau tol ke lawyer ke whakafonga e lawyer nau tol.
Iyo.
Thank
Thank
you.
Te epe mai tau loia he top America ni.
No, but I think it's also good that we get Whahina's lawyers too, so
Yeah.
we can give it to our
Sai pe
families.
ko na toki vahe mai pe whahina whita whaako ia e.
Yep.
Ko ia, ko I whainga maria ko ni te tukuange ia ka toi tā Pakieli Kaufusi. Na iai whake a me ana e o wha am whake ke tukuange ke toi tā ko ngāwne o smatei teu ke ne hanga o mai whamatala ko ni I ko tutu ni whapapalangi pe ka tene whakatonga I kātoa mai.
Whakaniu.
Whakaniua pe ko ki whakahange koe lau. Whakawhunga mana mo ui pe ko whepe hawhitu kai ke pe ke au kātoa.
Iyo malo pito Fatima ka pe ka la tu pe mo whahina pe mi soreiki. Whawhewhia mau pe ui ke tau ho mai o tokoni o tau kakai I tau fito ke taimini ko e taimieni o ku hoha e toko taha ko toa pe o hange ko whakatatau ke whakatanoa na tau whakahoko pe mo loia. Ka ko loto pe whakampe ke toiki o atu I rea whakatonga ngai mea mau inga na lawe pia whahina ke ngai ko ngai o ku mau inga au pito. Hange ko ki tau tolu koe ni mei tonga mana tui mau pe ko e toko lahi taha ko mei ko tau tolu kato. Na tau fō mai mei tonga na tau fō mai I he visa. Pea koe visa ko ia ko ilo tuku ia e toko lahi ke I mafo owa pe I heni ka upsai pe. O hange ka whakatatau a loea ka koe ai ki mea mahu inga ke mohonga mao. Kono uinga koe taimi ko ia koe te ke whetau laki ai pea moe ai sisio kone tu. Tu kone taimi ni o kuto inmoven pea moe ka polisi ia. Ai he whengawe ake koe ni ke nau kau I he whengawe ke propare mako ni kau. Ko hange koe tānoa moe loea. O kui kai toton ke hoha ka ke teu. Ai ko tahaini o ngai teu mau inga whamatala a toia. O ku ko hu mai kon ki Amerika. O kui ai ke me ana e whakapipiki I he wheitu kona ke hu mai ai pena ke whau mai Hawaii pena ke hua ke Lelei. Ko whepe wheitu na ke hu mai ke Amerika. Na e whakapipiki I he malai whakapuna I he immigration ai ki mea ui ko I-94.
Yes.
Ko I-94 ko ki foi identification number ia pa ko foi fika ia ke hanga o whakapapau i na ke hu mai visa ki he hu whakalao mai ki Amerikani. Aia ko ngongo whawhiawhia lai taha o ka paure o hange ko mutol ko more ai ki foi I-94 ko ea mehi o passporti. Koe po e whainga ni ko ta uanoa na hini na tonu ka kei no fo ova pe. Kung mahalo ko more passporti a koe na e whai ke
Kuri ana tam.
Ka kohono sai. Kohono sai hange ko ta anoa loea te ke hube ke website ko na immigration ko na Amerika. Whakahu ko inga ko mea ko te ke whainga ke ku mea ko I-94. Ko taipei pe I-94 i he ki search box ko ia koe i he website ko ia. Tene hanga rewa ave koe ki he mea koe apa ke mai rewa. Ko hai hingona ke ngā ue aki ho hu mai. He ko osi hanga nā tauria o whakahu ki he database ko e ni tatawa bebe na ko whetau na ke hu mai ai. Ko e ne tā ia tu peho hingoa. A tai me tau nau eke atu o a whaere i. Ko inga ke whakapapau i peo koe tō tātou tonu koe ke mea ko ia. Moe whanki whaunga identification whatever. Kau whaingo fua o pito. Pe te hanga rewa he mea ko ia tala mai o ho I-94 number. Sai koe whoi whika ko ia ui kai ke ngata pe mahu inga i he taimini. I ho o i he polo i he ngā ue koe ni koe ai si pe a moe kau polisi pe o hai pe ai kau law enforcement yung nau involve i he ngāwe koe ni ki he mea koe na turamu. Kau toi mahu inga foi fika koe ni o ka pau te ke apply ki he green card. Koe I-94 koe tahai o ki foi fika mahu inga o pito ia ki he taim koe te ke apply e ke ngai umea koe ni. Mana tui ko I-94 whai ngofua pe ho mau. Sai koe foi tahai o e mea koe mahu inga. Koe ua. Koe ua o whie mau. Ko hange ko ki mautolo ko ia ko mo osi nofo o ova i he tau e ua i Amerikani. Neongo koe nofo ova pe koe ha o te ke tokan ke mea ko ia. Koe fui mea ko whe mau ke mau ka whaka mo oni o ke osi heni ova tau e ua. Ai koe I-94 tene lava ia talai. Ka koe mea e taha. Koe fui mea mahu i ngā ia ke ia whaka mo oni wheitu ke nofo ai. Hange koe ni. O ka pau ko na ke nofo fai tau hongo fulu tau e wanoa tau e nima pe ko hape fai ngā tau kana ia ki feitu ke nofo ai pe ku hao ngai meiri ki ai ko ngai meiri ko ia o ku hao ka koe pe koe pila pe koe hape fai ngā meiri ko e wha mo oni e taha ho i heni o wake i he tau e ua ai au mahu inga upito ke mao e whanki mea ko ia. Sai koe mea taha o ko ki mautolu koe a koe na e ova pe kau whaire text. Ai au kulahi foke kakai kuna ngā ue pe i neongo ku ova ka kuna ngā ue pe kina tolo whainga i ngā ue ka kuna whaire text. Ko ho o information koe na ke ai ko ho text puke moia. He kumahu inga au pito ia. He kumahu inga au pito ia i he time koe e puke ai koe kuke o atu. Ko au e na whaire text pe a mui ngai whakamooni koe ia. Sai koe mea e taha koe hange koe ni. Hanga e tainini o alu ki ho siasi. Ku whangai whata. Po hape whainga siasi ke kau ke maa, monga, sastonga, wesiriana. O whi mau ke nau whaima ha tohi ke whakamo ni ho ngahi tokoni ko tope i he siasi. Ia whainga mea pe. Ko whaihiwa pe, ko ho o tokoni ke he youth pe koe ha. Ke nau whaima ha tohi kono uinga pa nauhanga o ai o pe ko te stapa ko te sai taha pe ai ho nau hingoa whai kau ai me contact information o whaituk nau nofo ai kono uinga ke taim koe puke ai koe pe lava ke nau contact ai te nau o contact te nau whehu i fuki ke whai kau o ku aonga toka tahani ki he community aonga ki ho siasi ko ngahi ume ai hange ko tau kila tau to ia tonga o tau fu tokoni lai o bito ngai me fa community tonga ka ku mahu inga o bito ke ngai fa mo oni ai ko ka fai fe ka o mahu inga o bito ia hen O wea i e whaahinga o nau kau i e ngahi umea pe i e community. O nau o tokoni, o nau o vorentia, o nau o whai ngahi umea ka toa ko ia, o ka pau ka ngahi kau tangata whalalaanga he community mai moha nau ki tohi. Alo kume haki i tohi mea nau tolu, o tānak tāng he whai haki i tohi, ko no inga ko tunga ke ia i, ka koe mea mahu inga au pito, ke ne whakaha mai ai ho ngā ue lelei na ke whakahoko ki community ko ia. Aia koe ngahi mea koe mea e taha, koe hange koe ni ko ho whanau. Ko ki mautol koe 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 nau whanau, ka utika ke au ke tau taha waluko inga ke nau lava whaire ho mou pepa. O ku mahuinga au pito ke toi aipe mo kopi ai PEF certificate. Aia koe ai ki PEF certificate ho whanau, pe koe toi tau ho whanau, o wha holope i o kato, o ku mahuinga au pito ia i he taim koe e puke. Mana tui koe puke ia koe ni wange koe tānoa whahina, pe mo e loia o ku ikai koe puke ala tu pe ia, o ware pe koe kua taofi. Ke te ngai umea koe ni o sio hifo ka tau whita ka mungtolu koe ke ha IT pe mo ngai umea pe he ka kumau ngai tokimeni koe ni o kulawa rewa ke iai whainga maari e tukuange koe. Aia kumau inga au pita mea koe to ope pa mo e pe certificate ho whanau kopi. O wa alu mo original alu mo kopi. Photocopy ai pe certificate ho whanau o alu holope mo i ai ki folder pe koe ki mea o whao ngai tokimeni koe iai ke alu holo moi. O kumahu inga o pito. Kai saibe ke toki oanga Fatima ke ni tānak maha ngai toki meni kehe. Ka koutui ko ngai toki meni mahu inga au pito eni. Ulo aki ko e siasko ke kau ki ai, whai maha tohi ki ai. Community ke ngai o ke nofo ai, ko ngai ngau, ngai tokoni, ngai aonga ke community. Pe koe taha, koe mea koe e whanau. Whi mau ko pito o ka pau ka whanau na whaere i hen kau te ke nawa o ke tau whakalao ke nau hanga whaere ho pepa mahu inga o pito ke carry around a copy e nau PF certificate. Oua te ke carry a social security a copy a social security number e kaure ka na whai pia toha whaitu ka e mau hataha pene hanga i o ngā ue aki a whika mea kaure ka. Mahu inga ke IP e nau PF certificate koe taha rewa foi mea mau inga mana tui ke whainga rewa tai mini ngā ue ke mau ho I-94 ki motolu koe ne hau he ako na e hau he wholau ewe ewa pene hau ha whainga whunga ke o ku mahu inga I-94 e mau e ki foi tika ko ia pea ke to horope ka mo foi namba ko ia koe taim koe te ne puki ai nau tolu he nau hau whoki mo hange koe ki iPad pe koe ha koe taipe atu pe I-94 ki loto ki ai ke asi hake toto atu sai koe konga rewa e taha koe konga e taha mahu inga upito a ki mau tolu koe a koe o kui ke mau ha po pepa koe taipe tai nini whainga ke whakasisi ai whakauri holo a tau whita ke whakauri holo e po uri ko no uinga he kuhange koe lau fo ke tai mini koe nau puke pe nau tolu ia koe nau ate tako koe puke ia whainga uinga ke ka mau wai kita ia i he mbea ke aia mahu inga rewa i he tai mini ke tokanga upito o sayang pe whakai ehi neonga uku ke maanga he mea koe ka ke tokanga he whakai ehi o te ke toi mau i halao ua na ke toi rere o lere vave speeding ko inga ke ia whainga uhinga taha tolai e tau tolu koe ni koe kui ate koe whamore more ni koe ko si tuhifo mou tolu ka koe mea ni koe o whatonga i ho mou ngahi lori ate o kulai ngai lori o mou whakauri holo ai expire registration expire pea mo safety o ua te ke whakauri ngai mea rere ko ia e kono inga ka rere mai ha polisia o sio mai ke expire e mea pe ta ofi ko inga ia ko immigration ni ka eka te IT o riti ai ka whainga mea ke ne hanga e ia te whakatotolo ka koe ai au mau inga au pito heni o ua te ke te whakauri holo i he ngahi umea rere o ku expire registration pea mo safety check ai au mau inga au pito he mea koe ni tau whito a ki motolo koe ka whaikawa o ku mo whanofo tu apo ka uke ilo i hifo o ku ke nofo ova i Amerikani o ku mau inga au pito ke whakai e taim te whakauri ai. Mana tui koe taim me tahu te kona ka watonga, o wange pia kona pia. Koe ai koe ke whikaua ke lue vae, uhe vae, pe puke ai pa i koe i hona tue whakatotolo i koe, o maui e ngahi umea ke.
Bona pit.
Koe konga e taha, na iai fuke ngahi tālanga holo i e Facebook a o pehe, o ku puke pa, ai iai kau puke i he mea, i he IC, ai tokolahi heni tonga, pēnā koe uhinga koe i kai ke totongi e nau collection, e ngahi umea koe mo ua he collection, e parking ticket me ngai mea. Koe nau whehu e whehu i koe ni ke loea, u talamai he loea, o kui kai ke kau e ngahi umea koe iai. Koe mea koe o polo pare ma, o ka pau na ke ai ke hopo, hange koe speeding ticket. Pea ke hola koe i kai ke alu ki whare hopo, koe tai mea polo pare mai te nau hanga nau tori o kumea ke o mau koe ai, ne kai ke alu ko hopo. Koe parking ticket fo ia, o alu pepa urifea ke collection, pea ke tokanga e taimini, te kia ho ngai polo pare ma ngai whanki i whi ko ia. Hange koe ngai umea ke kehepe, sayange pe, ai sina ki, i he tokitangi i he taim ko ia e hoko ngai umea koe sa mo sai pe o neongo ku kai ke hangu ko lawa loya ku kai ke hoko nga uhinga lahi ke tipoti ai koe ka mahuinga ke te kia o ka pare na ya ha hopo feinga ke fetutaki ki he fare hopo ke whakapapau i ngai umea ko ia ku hange ko tanoa whaina o ku kai ke ha totonu ai si ke hanga o ange ke ha information ko foi tari hanga tonu pe tarangi ki ai hei kai tike wango ha mea, hei kai tike saini, oua na ke saini ha pepa. Kai fui hangai ko tānoa loia. O nau poto fuki nau tolo no kaka i kakai. Kona tā koe koe pepa i ko wat ke saini, koe saini at deportation. Ai hono whakafoki. Ka te pehe ki taia koe saini pehe te nau loi nau tolu. Ai hau kai fuki te hawa tahia ke whakaongo mai pe koe. Koe mea taha, koe time ko mo communicate. Koe mea nina ka ke lawi kai loia ka ko pehe koe mea rereien. Koe taimi koe o ka pau e whaiwhange ko alo atu ha me mipa me kau IC, pe ko polisi, pe ko haipe kau law enforcement, unau alo atu ki a koe. Talange ka taha i api kene hangare ko te conversation. He ku mahuinga au pito hen ke muangare ko te conversation ko ni, ka pau rewa i maa whainga mari ke tānoa ke loia, o ku lava ke ilo pau he loia, ai ngahi umea koe na whaika e talanoa. Ugaha ngai whakamooni ke ngai umea koe pēr lava rewa ko te rei taha whokia ko pau e loi kau IC ki a koe he nau ngai whakamatala mo ngai mea koe ako ke mao koe re koti kono winga ke lava ke hoko i koe whakamooni na naulohe aki koe ke saini ngai umea koe he whainga winga ke aia koe mea via ke whamanat ka tau tolu ona mu saini ha pepa oua na whaiwhange pea oange ha whainga mea whikau aki mo koe. Ka eke atu pe ku ke ova taranga pe koe o kui kai tano ke loia, koe loia. Ngai umea ka ua pe na ke te tukuange ha whainga mea whikau aki mo ki mautolo. Sai koe ngai umea mahu i ngai i he tū koe, hange koe tanoa koe ni ki he birthright, ki he totonu koe whanau. Koe konga koe ni koe nau whehu i ke loia, pe akus whakamahino he loia. Koe mea ia koe ni o ku mau whakakoni stutone ia i Amerikani. Pe ke hoko mea koe ia koe hopo lahi whakauri ai. O te mohoha ki ai, o na mohoha ke mea koe ni whikau aki me totono e whanau. He koe mea koe ni o ku uhinga pe whakamatala koe ni, ko ki mautolu koe koe whaere whanau. Me he Sanuari aho tahiwa I believe koe aho nai whakanofo ai Palestini koe kamata pe me aho tahiwa o whai mai ai ka ko pau rewa uto ai hataha o whanau I he fo I taimi ko ia koe me ia koe question mark koe he taimini koe ki he mea koe ni ko ki motolu koe na e whanau I e whanau ia ki mua ka tok Palestini koe officially Palestini na turamu hawa au pito motolu o te moto e toka moto ke pe fraitu ia os even ai mea koe kou na whaka mālohi koe taimini ai ni koe os koe koe ai hoko a drama Palestini hei kai hoko ia hange koe tānoa e loia o hange ia koe ha show hange pe ia haki mea koe koe ne vai ngaki
Showman va inga
Aia ko liko peto una ko ne mau mafa ko ni stutone. Sai ko foi konga ta fe kau aki ko ni pe amo ki nau tol ko ia ko na e hu mai ki heni o ako e Amerika. Na fe hu I e latu e fe hu ma ko latu na fe hu ko ni. Ko fe hu ma hu inga au pitoeni. He kono uinga ko time ko na campaign ia turamu na tohi ate mea ko ni ka sai pe ke to tano hen. Au fatotolo ke mea ko ni o ui kai ke moonia o ua na ke alu feinga ke apply ki ngai umea kona ke mea kona ai turamu ke foi campaignia ana o te kai ne te hanga ia o whaka mooni maha mea he osi ai ui ngahe kua ngai lao I he whanua koni mau ia he ne foi rea ko ia ngahe mea koni koe whikawa koe moe whanau koe mau matai tohi pia mei Amerika sai koe ne tuko koe I he rea loiana ne pehe o ngari yange e iai a kinau tolu ko ni ko iai hanau special skill o fufie ma o americano e hange iai fanga mari ki he hange ko ni o ka pa ko taha kune o ne lava o pa o fa ina mea fa engineer ne ai o ngai very special skill be I he ka depende o hange ko tala no au depende be I he fie ma o ya Amerika ki he konga ko ya ka sai ka o ke te pe fo I konga ko ya ko me ma I ngai ko konga ta a te tok fra foki ya ka fahina pe mo la tu pe mo Fatima ke na tana ki mai a ki he konga ko ya immigration ni ka to pilave ki he konga ko ni ko fe ka aki pe mo e ngai to ko ne pure nga ke ya ko te fanau a winga na fa o me ai o tu kuangi atu kai ka tau kilere immigration ni ke te tana ki mai fati mo la tu pe mo fahina ke konga ko ne ngai me na tano atu I ngai me hange ko tala noa ai te loya o te mo mana va he hoko atu pe mo me ko hange pe ko mo ngai me ko na tau fai pe ki mu he hoko ko ne me ko ne a turamu ka mo tokanga pe ai ko tokanga ko to holo ngai pe pa ko no fai kai ai tala noa ko ni ka mo hoko atu mo ui pe a o te mo mana vahe a ki he ngai ume ko no fai kai ai hoha ai a ni malo
Te to pe mo e ki whanga mari ko ni malo pito to ta Pakieli Kaufusi ko ki sikon pe to no ka o ate pe ki hiwa falot ko ni ko fa manat mai pe ka ki tau tolu a anga fononga anga osko ia te tau kolosi le vai ki fahina pe a hokot ke la tu pa te toki fra osiatu ai pa mo mo pe ko ke tau ka fa ta pa mo konsela ka ko ne o mai pe u me a ko le mai ki u lawa tu pe ia o fe ka aki mo ngai to tonu whaka tau taha. Ate ki hiwa koe ni pa tau hokot. Ko ki hiwa ko ni une o mai e whaloto lahi pe ako tonu pe ki hiwa ko ni he whanga ki I tamai ki lota maa ko ni. Tau unga pe ki a Sihova ko haina ne ilo ki he anga o e tau whanonga ko e lotu pe mo e lau e tau wholofola ko tau whaloto lahi anga pe ia ki he anga o e whanonga pe mo e me ako iau tau whi hanga hangai I he taimini mo e kuonga ni. Te utuka te whenga mari ko ni ka te koe whahina te whai mai pe mua ha o tānaki pe ko ha o ki vahe pe tau hoka tuai pe ko e tau lere pe ni I he kaweinga pe a moe topiki ko ia mahu inga o ko ne ue sia I pe ai toko tako ta pe me Amerikani o a uki topre anga foki.
Okay, malo Fatima, to mawhanga Maria, malo. Hange ko lau kai kita ha mea ke hea ke to tāna ki atu. O ku whawhowhau pito pe ngahi mea kona vai mai to ke tā. Pea mai kāto o mea kona na o mai kona he risi ate. Pea hange ko ne lau e mea to mau pe passporti, to mau pe ngahi upe pa koe whi mau tau te whito na aho vare pe po pull over koe ka tiki te pa hawhainga mea. Ke ia koe pe ai ngahi document o whi mau. Ke asi oku ke legal pe hono fheni pe a ko to me pe wa ki ai ko ngai u resources ko na oku o atu ke mo kum hang hai resource ke to koni a ke tau kainga tonga a fainga palpare mai hoko ko hinga ko executive order ko ni ko atu ka malo pe to Fatima ko me pe malo
Malo o pito whahina, te tuange whenga Māori koe ni, kia la tuhua kau. Io, ka takpe toko tahkona ne eke mai, io ko whahina me he National Tongan American Society, whahina tawake pasi, pea me he State Utah Salt Lake City.
Io ka koe tahi ne whātumu. Koe tahi ne
Māori koe whunga lau lea whakia koe whitu ia koe mō mawai moko mai kau tahi.
Koe tāta eki ko tītāri, sona tītāri tawake me i whātumu pa o
kau
kine eki.
Kau paionia lalahi ai Amerikani i he onong fultupu na nau kamatai mai mapena ia o toko ni manoa kau tongai Amerikani taimi koe ia.
Ko whae ko lau manu kanungataa me i tataka motonga. Halo.
Malo a pito, iyo. Hoka tulatu.
Ko te peo ke mea lalahi pēnei o si o mai he toke tā Pakieli kia te tau tolu. Ka hange ko ia ko mea na tau lawe ki ai toke tā Pakieli ka maa whāhina. Ko e taimi whokeni o tau wanga pe he first 100 days ha Palestini o hange pe hanau showmanship he. Hange ko e na tau lawe ki ai mua loya. Pea kua pau pe ke hanga e Trump o mai e ngahi mea ke he foi aha koe first 100 days. Hange pe koe taimi o Obama. Ka koe taimi whaka Obama nau pe he koe mass deportation ka koe kau criminal ia.
Yes.
Kau ku kehe ia me he fu mass deportation koe ni. Pena i kehe pe a ngahi Palestine ko toa pe. Pea tau oho vale ni he tau toisio. O ku whainga a Trump hange koe whangi whanau ko ia e whaele hang na lawe kia ia a Pakieli. Ko tui koe mea ia ko ia u whakahoko i Australia. So that became passed as a law. Ka ku tau whakamalo pe ko hinga koe porokalama mahu inga. Pe malo ko hinga koe omi haloia kene hanga o omi ka tau tole mo oni. He koe tu koe he taimini. Kia e ngahi ni ihi ia ku just go with what's on the social media. Pea ko ia ku asibai ngahi la ita ia. Tau siat pita tu iu koe kakai ngā tonga ia. Koe la ita ia ha mea na e hoko pe ku hoko ate e sia pe ko mea. Kau tau whaampe ke tau oma upe ai mo oni pa ku whamalo ai ko i ngā koe whainga Māori e ahoni. So let's be prepared and let's not give in ki he IC.
Exactly. Malo o pito. Sai koe whainga Māori e koe ni ki mo ake tau toi hoko atu. Te to o mua koe ki e whaampe whoke tau kau whataha pa mai tau konsela tonga. Ka koe na ne kore mai pe moa. Ke tuku atu moa ki ngahi poini ko e ni ke whakahat ke kakai. Na e konga lahi aku o stala noa pe ki ai a toke tā Pakieli Fale'i Kaufusi. Ka teito e lawa tu pe eni. Ko e ulo aki. Ka paurewa o ku ala te IC pe ku ne puke koe ha whei tuu pe ku ala ke mou api. Ko e ulo aki o tā ke ti ai u rates ai ni ihi ne nau tu uta ta e whakalao mai ki he whonuani. Monu ia pe ai kakaitonga ne nau ha u whakalao pe. Ko no wa whaka ai ho tau kakai ke ua te nau mau lao. Whaka ata i he halapure a ngā. Pea moe hange ko ngai whaka uri kona. Moe whewhua ngahi mea ko ia o ku hoko ai. Ko mea ia o kune tataki ai kita ke mau kita e IC. Whika tolu, ke ilo he kakai e nau totonu. Aia o ku iai au ku haa ko ia i he red card pa te matoki hanga o print out te matoki tu whaki atu i he wike e ni pa mo la tu hoa kau. Koe whika wha, koe whai kehe ai polisi o nau tokanga i kina ke oa e mau i lai ai pea koe IC o na tokanga I kina ai immigration ni. Koe fika ni ma, koe ni ihi o ta e pepa ke oa te nau toi alu noa ia holo ki ha u feituu. Pe koe fika o no, whakapapau I o ki aha nau IT he taimi kotoa pe, pe koe te alu holo mo e te passporti, kai kehe pe o ki aha mea whakalao ke whonuani ke te ngawe aki. Ko ia pe, te tuka te ki whanga maare ko ni, te ta e pe tau ki hiwa, ki sakoni pe tahanima, pa tau kolosi ai. Ta e pe tau ki hiwa, te a osko ia pa tau whoki he kato ta Pakieli Kaufusi, ta e mama ki hiwa, ko I ngahe ko au ko oska mata ke wiri fia, ta e mama ki hiwa ko te ki fia ai, mo ki ngau ngau e ai.
There's 404. Tari pene o ome he ki hiwa, koe lau tau ai mau e tari te pa mo eiki. Ai koe haere mai me e hoko atu ki ai to e tā Pakieli. E whengai ke neongo peku mau e tari te mo eiki. Kai whengai ia ke sai ai tari te pa mo aisi.
Io, malo bito Fatima koe. Hika ke te lawe koe na e sai au pito koe na e o mai be I e tau embassy
Konsela.
Konsela tonga, sorry, konsela tonga. Ai ki fo mau po Lelei fa ngo fo ki moto ke mo mana tu I pe mangai me na mata no ki ai. Ko ko ngai taha ko loto ke tana ke tu ko hange ko ngai fa ngamari e ko na ki ta ndongo ki fo loa ta vito ka moto ko ia ko fo loa no fo ni ka mo ke tai pe pa o ke sio ke lawa loia ko ngai whainga mari ko ta whainga mari ko pa ko ha fa nau heni te ke alu ki whare hopo ki he immigration mea ki hopo ko mea whaka immigration ni alu ki he whakamau ki he mea ui ko cancellation of removal na tala noa ki ai ane nai he lava pe I he fui mea ko ia o ngā kene o mai ha tohi ko no inga ko makatunga ki o wia o whanau heni ka o ke itari pe o te kai ke apply ho pepa ko I ko nau tau te nau hangarewa o issue e hangarewa e whamau anga ia o atu ka koe ai mea koe ko ko cancellation of removal ai ko no inga ko kanseri ke ona te lavataha o ave ko me Amerika kai ore wa ke whai ngai ngā hoi koe nuhangi koe tānau ke I ki ho whanau na whae rei heni pe koe haa whai ngā uhinga ko mea pe ke tokanga ki ai o ka paurewa na ke mau lao ngahi hia mamafa o na ke alu ki ai na ovare ko puke ai pe koe ai a koe tala noa pe ka ki nau tonu koe o ku nofo ova ka kui ai na whanau na whanau I Amerikani mu alu ki ngai u resources ko ni ta ko ise ke ta no aloya lahi au pito ngai whainga maari e Amerikani si o mou konte ke a Richard ki he loya ko ni ko o ilonga he ne tala noa hang koe laua Fatima o fu ilo lahi au pito ke me wha immigration ni mo ngai whainga maari ke maua green card hangi koe koe ne tala noa ke konga koe whika wa koe na koe mo cancellation of removal e mau koe me whakamawanga pe to ope ki lai pepa ko ia tai me taha I ngai ko au ne whakamatara o ku hanga pe I he whakamawanga ia o atu o ngofua ngā ue. Sio ke fui mea ia taha ko mao me he tano mo loia. Sio malama ia ke watu pe ia i he whakamawanga hao ki ngofua ngā ue, whakataimi ke tari ke ho whanau ke lalahi ke tau tawalu ke ne lava o petition pe koe whaire ho Green Card ko ia ke nofo Amerika. Hange koe lau, o ka pau o ku maa ho rekoti i he pureanga Amerika. O ka pau reo ke ilo i fona iai hangai hopo na ke hola me iai o na ke aluna ma wai koe. Koe tala noa ben ka kinau tolu koe o ku maa ho na o rekoti. Koe taha ia mea. Ka te wafe whakaosi mai na ki whamamafa ne nai ka ngalo ki whanau koni koni na hu mai koe ako. Ka tak pe Fatima ke konga koni kau ki tānaka tu kani kina toko ilo tolai au pite whanau wako na fomai PYU, fomai mau university, o se ako ipa na hola na tori Amerikan. Ono fo ovai peka ko sma o na degree. O te ke mana wahe, kau ki mouto luia i he hange watarerei nai. Neo ngau te ke hoko e mea e koe ni kau. Ka koe mea ni ke whai. Alu ke university, o whenga i ke mao mai ai whakamooni, ai na ngawa ke whuire ai mea kong I-20. Whenga i ke ai ho kopi ho I-20 ho ohu mai kon ki Amerika he ako. Puke kopi koe I-20, puke mo I-94. Ai ka whui mea mahu inga. I kai ke ngatai, te ai whoki mo proof na ke ako he university koe am he tau whe o se tau whe. Ai ka whui mea e tahai ako whui pepa. Pea koe whamui re vai pepa, o ku mahu inga, ke mao, ai ki whui kopi ho certificate. O ka pau ko o diploma, pe ko o bachelor, pe ko o master, pe ko o toketa, ka kuke owa. Whingai ke mao ngai u pepa koe ni. Manatui uluaki, whi mao ho I-94, whi mao mo I-20, ko aia koe I-20 te ke mao ia me university. Te ke alu ke university o request ka ki nau tolu, ke oa te kopi ho I-20. Koe I-20 koe mea ia koe ke he whoke I-94 koe huia he immigration ni ki e whanua koe ni. I-20, I-94. I-20 koe apia koe ia. To university ia. Aia te ke puke o dokumenti ko ia, aire wa pia mua whakamooni me university, te nau whai mea koe ni, na ke ako heni i he tahaiwa hiwa ki he te ua awhi mātolu, whatever years. Ka nau hanga o atu ka koe whakamooni ko ia. Sai ko dokumenti whakaosi rewa, ko ho o mata i tohi nei mau. Pe koe mea me community college o ki certificate, pe ko ho o diploma he ha, pe ko o ma ko bachelor ngai u mea ko fe mau pe ke lue horo pe moia tana ki atia in addition ki ho tana ka tio ki ngai document na fai ka ta no ba nai ai fa mo on your residency pe mo ngai u mea ka to ko ia to mo ID o ka pau ko ki mo dolo te ke mau mo local ID pe ko te ke mau mo driver license en o Lelei au pito ke puke ho tongan driver license ho license fa uri tonga mo passport tonga ai a tana ka tonga i umea ko ia pa lava re ke mau ngai dokumenti feka au pito ka o ware pe ko hoko whainga mea o puke ko e tuange pe ko inga ko mau ho ngai u documentation ko ni ai a ko ki tana fa os pe ia Fatima ki konga ko ni ko ki fana wako na foi pangalo fana wako fana ko na hu mai ko ia i he ako ko ia i American
Sako
hange ko hiva ko ia ko na ta e Fatima tau lotu pe na o ware pe ko ko haina ne ko haite ne ilo na o ware pe ko ma fu fanga mari ke ka wako o hoko ia ko ai ko fai ga lau o papau na ke o sia ko i America i ha university ma o certificate pe ko ha ke automatic pe ho apply ho green card neongo ai ngai legal peto ko ni ko me fa America pe fokia taulotu pe ka ki motol ko ya ko na fo mai o ako e va vendi pe ngai u me ka ko me pe tau sia foki e Fatima ko e fu pe se ti la ia o ka over he nia ko ka ho fu mai ako pena o vai pena kangata be Asia ko i Urope fere angai u feito ko o mai be o ako pe os pe mai matai to ye pe hola i pe ko ke ma nga we pe ko ke ma o hanga whenga maari ko ke mea kai ke koe tau let's pray kai ke whamalo au pito e Fatima koe tāna ki pia ki he tau konga koe a whikawaki muinga hei mea koe.
Ofa pito malo pito to Pakieli e tānaki mai u konga koe ni koe ngā mahu inga ia ai polokalama koe ni pia mo e ngahi information koe ni ke tau hanga wahe pa mo e kāinga whanongo ko toa pē kai ngata e Amerikani mahu mei lahi ange ho haa mai ai kāinga New Zealand mo Australia ke ilo i pe koe haa koe tuunga utau iai. Ka kono mahu inga taha pē koe ngā koe tau mau koe ai ngai tu uni totonu ke tau whai ki ai tau me aka i ngā kau ke kai ke tau mau pe tau la ki tala no au susu pe tau lele ai pe ai o pe ko kai ke nau tokanga me nau tolu ia ko uhinga pe ia ki he ai me ia kon tu uni whakalao kon drum ko uhinga pe ke ka kai kon close ta whakalao mai ka ke mana tu i ka pau o ku i kai ke tau he lao fonua o ke kau pe mo ko he mau lao la he taha he ko inga ko tau no fo he ni ka pa ko ke tokanga ko ke tau he lao ke neonga ko fanki me i ki hange ko ia ki he hala mo me ka ko ka wai pe ko fanki me ko ia o puke kita he polisi pe ko ia ke fuhu ko tau lao ko ke ko mai me ko ia o ku kau ka to pe ai hono ma kita pe o si ko ia hange ko ti u ai ko ti wai fo ko ke ngai kalas ke te alo te kai o si ko ia e kai pe ke to ma ke to o ia mi ho le ko ti for the rest of your life e lava peia o te algitaia o fai te ukalasi pe hoko atu pe to activate te license whakauri but it's now going to be off from your record for the rest of your life para pau leve te nau sia fa nau tolia po me ko ngai fonga ia ko hono ma wai pe pa ko na o si mai pe he to ko ni ko ia me office ko ia o konsela o pe mai ke mo nofo Finke mo no fo ma o e fu al holo ko inga ko la vai pe mo faka ko ange pa faka ko la ko e to ta prevention is better than cure o e toki hoko pe toki hoko me ngai fa ngata to fasta no no ange ngai pa ma e ko tu i pe ko to ta ho ta pe si ai ni ta mo ana ta mai ko kum fa nga mari me ke fo no ani ka ko ta finga pe ne o pe ko ta over pe ko ha ka pau pe pe talango fua pe ko ki mamau e lao fonua o ko ka pe ia he toko lahi au pito ma ko ia fahina io pe ai pe ha tana ki kai la tu
ma ko me pe tahana o manatui akina to ko ku ya na fa na wi ki they need to have a guardianship over their children ko inga pe na ho ko ha me ko inga pe ia ho ko tai mini ka na la ve ki ai loya ko inga na ho ko ha me a ku ia pe hange ko ia pe ha taha ke interest ki ai ke tu ki ai fa na
ko ia
guardianship is very important i American ko ia pe
ko ia me hange pe guardianship ti no ka nga fa no ko hange pe ko ha tohi ha taha ko ani tohi tuku ko ni tohi ai ta ui fa papalan ko will tu ko pe ko ia ko nga na ave atu ai hoa ia pe ko mea o ko si ai pe ai pe ko puri atu ngo matu o ko si ai pe ka kai una o se hanga pe o tuka na falala mana fa ma fai ke hoko atu ia ko legal guardian ne ke hoko atu na tawi o family pe mo fa na
very important
ka ta ke pe to ta Pakieli he to fa ha askoe ka ko ilo pe ke to la pe ngai me a ko e nai ai ani lo tonga ko ia ria ko ai loia pe na kai ke ma o ke o mai e na ngai feu i ka na ton tohi mai pe na e pe he foki ko ia ko hangi ko ni pe ko ia ria ha ngahi feitu ke tokoni ka na tolu hangi ko anga ngai fare i pe mo ngahi me ko hangi pe ha ki educational workshop ti no ngai feitu ta ia ko te ia ha i lo ke ai pe ko me pe fai te feitu ta ki pe ke ngai ta fa aki whakalao ko ia whanuani hangi ko ngā ka whafofonga ko me state ke o mai me ai ka ko uhi ngā pepe ko uki ai naha o mao ki ai ngai ta whaaki whakalao
Io hangi pepe alo pito e Fatima ko i ko fiu ko me si ka ngā monia pito Ko state ko tō pē ku ia i ngai tokoni ta fito ki he kakai ko ia koe ange ko ki tau tōru koe ku no fo ova pe ko hawhai ngā polo parema. O mau inga upito ke mo wo ke ngai tokoni whakalao ko ia. O ke pe fo ke u state i. Pa koe taimini hangi ta noa loea o kei fo tutu e ngai state si. Ma ti fo ko toki hoko pe ni ai mainani. O nau ko state ko tō pē taimini kawa Hawaii o ke whakatutu e ngahi mea ke whakahoko e ngahi workshop. Ai au whimau ke sio TV, ko ngahi resource Lelei ia ke mo sio TV ke whakapapau i ngahi workshop ko ni e whakahoko kono i ngā ko e tari o mo ngai whehu i o ku moutokang ke tokoni atu ka te kumouto. Ka wai ki mea heni e whatima ko loto ke to ke te ki lave ki ai whekawaki ko ia pia mo e hohaa ko ni koe ki he ngahi tokoni e pure a ngā ai koe ni ki he financial aid ke whanau ke ako university. Ko kongai ku mau inga o pito he ni ulahi ai ma o pehe o ku more ai pia mo e mo koni o pito koe ngahi u tokoni o ku hanga i he administration ko ni o pute pause ki ai. A wange ko lau ala tu fo ke whakataimi. Ko me pio ko hoko e president fo oko to ape. Ka ko ki moutolu ko ia koe o kuia ha mu whanau ulolotonga i he university. Ko e ngahe i u tokoni koe e pure ngā ui koe financial aid through loan. Aia ko e no koe pia me federal government ke unga ke lava whanau o hu ke university o ko pau ke lava support. O ki kai ke wesia ia. Ai ko ne tu koe i he tutuuni ko e ni o ki kai ke wesia ia. Ko e mea koe kue sia o kuia ngahi u organization. I he me state ko tō pē o nau kore paanga ke federal government pea o mai e paanga ko ia o whakafou atu e kore ai whanau ki a nau tolu. I he whaunga ko ia o nau tolu e uhinga ki ai e mea. O ka paurewa ko nā ke kore hanga tonu pe ko ia ki he financial aid ko ia ke ako investi o kai ke wesia ia. Ai au ke hoko atu pe ai ngai u fonga motua whaafono o financial aid application i he kamata ko tō pe SMS ta pe mau ho financial aid pa ke hoko te ke mau ai pe o financial aid ka mana tui mau pe ko financial aid ko ia ko i flu loan ko ia me federal government o whahoko ia i he tau ko tō pe ko e tau o kamata fukia os ko ia spring. Au kamata rewa no whakafono ngai financial aid ko ia i he konga ki mui spring o alwa tai ki he fall. Ko ngā whoko e fall semester, ai kamata ko ni ko i a kosi, ko ia kamata i tau ko a Amerika. Ai aku mahu inga upito ia ke tau manatui ke ngai mātua ko ia ko ku ave whanau ke university, i he whonga ko ni ko e tokoni me pure anga i he loan, financial aid, o wikai ke wesia ia. O kai ke wesia ka matui ko mo tolu te ke mo ilo ke ngai funga ko financial aid ko panga ko ni ko loan ka ku kai ke fai ha payback i foi time ko wa ko te whanau ko time ko to tong fa fo ke pure anga ko ki to tongi e to tong pe to nga ka to ene mo wi ka ko winga e to ki fa hoko pe ia i ene osme university o kamata ngawe manatu ki whanau o wahola me ai.
Ke tāna ke
wahola me ai. O whemau ke nau kamata no tāwha whoki e nau no. He kono uinga he koe hange ha toi fuisi ha vilo. E aloha ke nau whanau ha aho ko paka ke nau mau ha panga whiunga ke support e whanau ke au ke university e toi fōu pe i he whonga tatau. Ai aku mpahu inga upito ke nau kamata no tātai nau no i he kamata koe ke nau ngāwe. Ai ako fu ime ek mau ingai. Koe konga koe ki ngāwe koe ai pe mo whaunga i he whakamatala ke ngāwe. Koe whaunga koe ke ngāwe ko paurewa koe pe fu i re volo ka fu maulalo koe fu i kalase ni o kosa na ulak matai tohi pe nau apply rewa ki he maa a ka o nau part time. Ko nau tolu ko ia o eligible ke nau apply ke o tā rewa no. Kai ore wa ka winga ko ki part-time ko ke whiunga ai wahenga ko ia ke tauhi aki mea mo fua ke ako. Ai au mahuinga upito rewa ia ke mo whenga we aki wa of. Ka koe mea mahuinga Koe message ko ia pe koe mea koe ke mo ilo koe ngahi umea koe whikawaki mo financial aid pe koe tokoni ai federal government ki he ako ki he whanau o kui kai ke wesia ia. O ka paure na mo apply i he whanki organization koe ni koe o kui koe non-profit organization o nau wha apply koe ki he aid koe ia pe mea ko nau tolu e wesia. Aia ko nau tolu e wesia i he ngahi umea koe ni. Ai koe ki tāna ke pe ia Fatima ke konga kone koe whekawa koe ia moe panga tokon koe ia ki he whanau koe koe kuako. Ka sai koe, ka whakawa ki atu pe ha mu tāna ke konga koe ni.
Ia, ko ki tāna ki atu ki he mea koe na tokita. Koe financial aid koe na two things. First of all, o kuia e me o kui he financial aid koe Pell Grant. Te mo lava o apply ki ai whanau. Koe Pell Grant, koe paanga ia kou o mai koe ki tokonia ki a kou he Pell Grant o koe ki te totongi ia. It's a grant. O mai ia ki a koe pa te totongi, pa koe reo te whemau ki totongi. So don't forget, ko moga apply for the loan, e rako, also apply for the Pell Grant because that's a grant. Pa koe mea taha na e lawe ki ai that I wanted to cover koe u whare hopo kotoa pe, ka pau te ke alu ki ai. O ekan ka nau tolu ke na oatuha, they probably all have list of resources. O loea o ta e totongi. He? And sometimes go courthouse and hip fire now funky free workshop o te alu ki ai, pa kwa ka loea, ka pau te whema o hatokoni whika aki mo immigration, pa hape a whainga mea. He? Te nau lava reo na tolu atu ai loea ko ia, ai ka loea ko ia, te nau lava o atu tokoni ta e totongi. He?
Ko ia.
So go to your local courthouses, ask for the free attorneys.
Oh, malo vito whaina te tānak mai ki he konga ko ia i o na ku hanga o aiki tohi koni koe na tukuange koni koe i he Facebook ki he kainga tonga na e kaua i Pell Grant ai koe uhinga nia ai tānoa koe ni a whaina ki he mea koe ki he grant koe grant ni ke hia pia me he financial aid going through loan ka au nau tānoa he loan yan nai ai koe fui me e ua ka ku te lava peo apply lo ua ki ai o ka pau te mao ai mea koe ni i he grant e lava rewa he kai ki te toi totong whafo ki ai kita but very competitive au pito e konga koe ia majority i he tau kaure kau apply pe koe ni ki he loan ai koe ki he loan koe tau fito ka nau tolu koe kua ua ke ki he maa a ua ki he toke ta o nau alu through i he loan ka nau kei lava peo apply ki he grant koe ni utanoa ki he nau hanga summarize nau hanga tohi umea koe ni pa nau hanga o whakahoko ia ki o tau community whekawaki mo ngai grant koe sai ngai umea koe ni o kai ke wesia ia i o kaua be mo grant ka nau i o tanoa nai ki he loan i he tainga ki he loan ni koe koe ki he ako kake koe malo o pito e whahina e tokon mai i ngai konga koe ia ngai koe resource koe ni utanoa ki a whahina koe ni au ngau pito ai whepota noa koe ni ulawa ke mo mau ia ka whafo ki atu ka Fatima pa mo la atu hange tau lawa i he tānoa immigration ni au ni ka tau tok tānoa mo irere i he uke ka au
Kai moana pito ia ko ia ko ne sai pe ko information ko no mai ko immigration mo ulele ia pe mo tau mafu. Ena tau mai wange ki mama ki o tau mafu mo ki ata mai buirisia. Ka ko sai
ta e Fatima o ko watonga nga tau kakai o te mufu hoha ke mea koni ke tau fito ka mutou tato maalunga na wale pe ko tua e taha mo mafu ko hange koni ku tau whawhiawhia e au ni hae loia mo ui whiawhia oa pe oa te mo oa stress out e ngai umea koe ni ko no inga whiunga pe mo e hua te ngai umea koe ni pe mo e tu e tae mafu pe e hoko te propare mai o te mo moi fia pe ange ko ki hiva ko na vai Fatima mo la tu lotu mau pe te ke tu mau pe vai ga malo bito
pa te tau ala pe ki he tau fa singa te tukat pe ko e hape ha o fa ka fa si la tu po ka me o ke pe he ma inga ko tau vai fa o si eni tau round it's like Osi minute wanoa me ni mahitai minute 20 minutes past 5 so te pe tau ki minute ho fulu tau fa o sepe la tu
Ko tui ko tau o si kawa ko toa e ngahi mea ko ia ke tau mo ui no ngape o te tau mo ui rifia. Tau tolu iau ku taha ku hoko mai mea ia ko e ni tau tui o tua tau tolu. Ka koe mea mahu i ngā ke tau whahoko e ngahi tokoni ko omi he ahoni he tau poro karama ke tau mo ui ma teu teu ki ai. Pea hange koe lau ko a pongpongi te tau aha ke tuk mai he miti ai aha mea kehe. Hange ko iau tau wakai ki he 25% ko ene o teu e Trump ke ne impose ki he trading aia through Canada pea mo Mexico. Tau tolu ia ko more increase ia ke tau pocket he ke tokoni.
Hange pe ko lau ko e loea he na ne pe he ia ke tarisi pe maha o se foi ahe o nonoa pe hiwa noa me he ne maha ko si mafuri e foi tutuni
ko tau showman time then.
Tau, just kind of go with the flow right now. Pe kai ke pe ko mai he loea pe moi pui to a o prevention tino mai me ko ia. Te tu kat ki fa mari ko ni ka ko fahina.
Io ka malo ko fa malo atu pe fa mari ke si ka mai por kala mai fia fini e Fatima. Pa fo fa pito por kala mo na information wa ba ya tu ko ia pe malo.
Malo o pito. Malo o pito tai ne me he mo ngā pa mo tere a ano masi mai pe io te tuka te whanga mare wha oskoni to e tā Pakieli kui ai pe ha me au ke pe he koe wha o singa aki pe pa ma whamanatu koe tokoni ai pe ki ho tau kainga whanonga ko tō pe whekau aki pe a moe mawhasia koe nei whakau kau ai whehangahangai koe ni pe a moe ice.
Ia, malo pito Fatima la tu ka pe foka pahina. Whiwhila ia pito i e whenga maari whahoko koe ni ahon. Lawa ke tau ki whepota no akai mo loia, tokon lai au pito loia, hono o mai, hange koe lawa Fatima, kainga tonga, au kuhanga i e social media o mau i e tau mo ui. Katak whamone no ngāwe ake ni, sai be o social media, kai koe information ko ia pe ko ngai uongong koe vai vai i social media o te ke tui ka mea hange ko whakatano a loia. O ko hoko ngai umea koe ni o toi lahi ange ho mana vai koe ngau e social media. O te ke tui kia koe mo onien na whakatano whaka hoko hanga tona pa mo loia. Pea koe ni nai whai maurerei taha whehu i ke loia ai ngai umea mahu inga taha koe mo whema o ke mo ke mo ilo ki ai. Whika waki koe ia koe pia mo e polopare ma koe ni. I he taim tata upe, ko hange koe whakatanoa o te mo fu lahi sio TV, ko no winga koe lahi anga mo sio TV, koe lahi anga pe ho mo mana wahe. Mo hoka tupe mo ui i he no molo. Kai sai pe mo e whakai ehi. Hange ko whakatanoa koe ni. Sai pe whakai ehi, mana tu ke wha o mo ki i toki meni, mo ngahi pepa koe na mautano ki ai wha holo pe i ho lori ate, wha holo pe i ho lori whaikawa, koe hape whenga merere whakauri ai wha o noa holo pe. Ui kai ke tau ilo koe hae mea hoko i he i whanonga ngā tuko ni. Ka koe uhange koe lau, ma koe fo i wave pe, uhange pe haki fo i pe au. O ku hao whakataimi, ko pe hepe ngai Palestine fōu ko tope, ko tau hope, tau whaamu pe, e o se mai na tolu mehenu ka mata ke more atu e ngahi u mea koe nika tau whoki ki he no molo ai mo ui. Ka ko ofa lai atu a te mo tolu si kai ngā tonga ko tope, whamamore i ma au, tau te whito ki a te au, o ko pau kua ngai rea, kai ke tole rei, pe kai tau mo whiunga, pe mo whanongo, o ko kei tangata, pe ko kei mo ui pengu, o ko ui ai pengu whainga rea, kai ke tau mo whiunga mo wakai, whamore more i au. Koe rei taha penu whai ate whiinga ki ai, whamange aonga haki mea, i e ngai whipota noa aki i e whiawhini malo opito.
Malo opito, toke tā Fale'i Kaufusi, koe tokon lahi opito e ne ko ke hanga toko mai he ahoni, pea koe mau inga opito pe whakia, koe mea pēnei whai kai tau mua ke tau mau pe, ngai whahino hino, mo ngai wahe o ko hao hanga tonu pe. Tau te whito koe usio ki he loia, o kuna ui ana toko super loia, maha koe kau taha ia mahalo taha walu la lahi koe Amerikani kawai New York Times, kawai pe Washington News kona me Washington DC. o kuna o hanga na to recommend to taha ko ni pe o ko to taha loya ko ni na fu mahena pe to pe na o mo tram ka ko nga o ku sai fo ke ta ma o ai me hanga ton hanga Fale'i ke to koni ke ta to lu ka te milai wa nga pe tau ki fa ka ma tau ki po ta tala pe ne fa ave halai e ta fa ka mo ta to ai ke alu o ta fa ki ka ko ia ta fa malo ko to pe ne lava le ta polo kalama pe hange ko ngai Fale'i pe nei o mai me he konsela tonga o whamanatu mai pe ngai mea kona tuku atu kona na mau tuku atu pe a whakaiki i a tā pa kai pe ma whanki kāti kolokula o kulawa pe ke hanga pāke ki kāti pa te mau whenga pe koe haa mea ke mau toko niai ke o atu i he wiki e ni ke tu whaki ke ngahi taki community ka uma a ngai siasi ko i ngā ke toko ni pe ko whē pe a whitu ke alwai ke whanonga pe mo ki kāti ke ilo pe ho'oto tonu. Whamalo lahi hene ke kautaki community ko ia pea me he ano masima National Tongan American Society whahina ta wake pasi mo te whaki na ko i tonga pe ko whanonga pe he ke nau tolu toko si i pe ia na nau i hene taim ko ia ai ko titari ko i ne tangata e ki ia ko i kakai ta pea mo i pe whaki ke alaman ka ko ki nau tolu ia na nau kau mai he tafi mala e mai o e whenga e whatu ko ia o ngahi nofo ko ia e tonga i e taimi ko ia i he ono ngofu tupsi i na nau osi Amerikani ki nau tolu maa ko e ono wānai pe ko taimi ko ia ko tui pe maa nau ton pe lau e whahina e maa ko taimi ko ok lere no ia pe whahina ia e tau wheturi alo e IC Amerikani e pe a whamalo atu en kau koa ngāwe ki a la tu hoa kau ka e moe ngahi tokoni kai uma ahano vahe atu e information ko ni ke kai nga whanongo ta te fito foki o ki ai pe foki lao ma ke he ia ai state ko ni na e whenga pe foki ai lawyer ko ni ai ko ai governor for ofa more ko Bob Ferguson ko ngā ke hanga ta ofi ai o mai ko ai si ke nau i he ki he ni ko ngā pe ko ne whenga pe ia ke hanga malui ko ne tamu a pe o kui kai ke loto ke whamawahe i mo veuki ai nofo ai family pea ave ai mātu a kai tuku ai whanau pea koe na o si toi rea na o si o pe ki a neafi pea ku alu atu ai kau latino ka toa toko lahi au pito mātu nau lau afe nau tona nau alu ki Olimpia he ahoni o whai nau laka pe ko wha amu pe na lava whama opo e kau ailani ke nau alu o wha aho nau re o pea moeanga nofo ko ia e tau culture o tau nofo whataha pe mo whe vahe aki whamili pe toko taha ko tau pe ia he kolomo e anga o e tau whe kaunga aki whe vahe aki pea ko e anga ia nofo ai tonga kai uma ai kau Pasifiki Saute pea whamalo lahi ene ki hongo radio engineer ko today Tevita Unahefa. Thank you so much. That's the top DJ and also the live stream for the Voice of South Pacific. Also, the new assistant, Primi Solo, Malo Opito ai tokoni. Ko e whaamu pe ia kua Lelei te polo kalama i Amerikani ka pe whakatua pure anga foki. Pea ku whai pia mau Lelei taha ke vahe atu a information to tonu ko ia tuku mai ko ia mei he pure anga. O whekau aki, pea hange ko ki tau tolu ko ia kaulanu mo e kau kumi whanua mai ko ia ki Amerikani. Ka iai peha mau to'o whatongia koe ke hoa mo tau mo ho'o whie mau, mau whai peha mau Lelei taha. Malo apito mo mea mai ka mo mea.
Aloha, good night.
Good night.
Good night everybody. Tau whasoi fua o whātu ta e te hiva.
Fia, fia,